comparable they are, because there are certain sections, in fact, almost the entire process is being railroaded without any proper consultation. Whatever it is, that these two are not comparable. The Old Testament situation, post King James version situation, are not comparable at all, because we've lost. At the risk of at the should I call it? I don't want to necessarily personalize it, but I mean, to have announced this mark-to-market thing, that most of the fund holders or investment fund managers are already telling people what to expect. People have already lost money, really. I mean, even before this was announced, we lost money in terms of the nearly 60% depreciation that we've suffered, and over 40% inflation. So there's been significant amount of losses already. So to be told that most likely 70% of your depressed pensions are likely to be depressed or cut off again, you cannot be telling people that nothing has been lost and everything will be recovered, because the time value of money in itself has been defeated. So I thought I should make this point clear that
yes, even before you continue, did I read from you earlier in the week that you lost some huge amount of money in the process so far?
Well, it depends on what is characterized as huge. The fact of the matter is that the investment made over the number of years should have yielded or made me 100,000 cities better off. Now, as I got my statement from the EDC, even before this debt exchange joke, whatever is happening, I've been shaved off by that money already. That is assuming I wanted to collect my money today.
Okay. Now, so as it stands, I mean, because of the mark-to-market value, the mark-to-market system you're operating now, the money is still there. You have not taken it, so it's still the value you expect, not the shaved off value, right?
Well, you see, even that nomenclature has to be discussed properly, because it is this value that is going to go into the debt exchange program. So it's not as if as I go there today, I'm going to get my full value of the money. In fact, had it not been this debt operation or debt exchange thing that has been announced, I probably would have had maybe 60 to 70%, 60,000 cities more if I were taking my money today. So I'm just saying that this conversation about nothing has been lost is in itself is tricky if you go by that analogy, that if you were going for funds today, nothing has been lost. Significantly.
No, it's not said nothing will be lost. It has been lost. It said nothing will be lost. So at the end of the day, his hope or expectation is that nothing shall be lost.
That's not true, and I'm submitting to you that even before this debt operation was announced, I've already lost the value of the money in the exchange rates, the depreciation of the CD, as well as the inflation. So it's not as if we had 40,000 CDs a few months ago or a year ago, is the same amount today. It's not. So that characterization of nothing has been lost is quite frankly ludicrous, and I think we need to establish that. So look, this whole thing, we saw it coming. I'm sure you've heard many of us, many analysts have said it. You have also said it, that if the government had taken steps much earlier, first of all, by going to the IMF probably 2 years ago, would have been in a better stead, because then this debt restructuring would have happened one way or the other. And the negotiations leading to the debt restructuring or debt operation or debt exchange or whatever they want to call it would have been painless, and not to be surprised by certain audio leaks that we had, and then its attendance explanations on the Sunday and later Monday, and everything seems to be in a hurry, and people are not particularly people haven't understood exactly what is happening. And I dare say that a lot more people haven't woken up to the reality of what is likely to happen, apart from the ramifications it is going to have on the economy, the dividends and investments, and the fact that people would lose interest in the whole concept of political governance Well, maybe it's about time everybody else becomes a bit more interested in the way governance is conducted in this part of our world. We lost a critical sense of accountability, political accountability, or even economic accountability when we decided to become lower middle income, or now that we are a middle income country, right? The suggestion at the time was that, or the practice at the time before we became lower middle income country, or when we used to be at the mercy of the multilateral and bilateral donors, it was a case that before government was going to go ahead with any plan to execute a project or its program or its main programs or medium term to long term, it needed to have the blessings or to have some conversations that were going to happen between the civil society actors, the media, the donors themselves, and so, even to some extent the business community, right, and the government, before everything else would have been blessed. There were times when the World Bank would publish the status of implementation of projects that it is supporting in the country. And that clearly would have meant that until the government managed to explain give reasons as to what has been executed so far or otherwise, they were not going to get the next tranche of money. But now that we were exposed to the market, we found the market to be the darling of the darlings, and unfortunately, these darlings were not necessarily looking at what we're going to use the monies for until recently, when they realized that we just couldn't pay back. And this is the time I suspect that everybody should be part and parcel of this accountability exacting process, because we cannot continue to live this way. If you think that for the next 8 to 10 years, we are just going to be in pain, because quite frankly, I don't see any stellar proper, this government coming up with any proper value for money related programs at all. It's not going to happen. And unfortunately, they'll saddle whichever government comes after them with all this unnecessary distraction and unnecessary debt. But it is important that we still find space and time to start measuring every action, every word of every political actor in this space, because we cannot experiment with what has happened. We cannot sit aloof and expect it to happen once more. So my initial remarks are that there's a certain contradiction that ought to be exposed about this so-called nothing will be lost. Eventually, everything will be recovered. Of course, the moment you start dicing up my funds, and even before it lost its significant value in terms of what it could purchase today, you've already lost something substantial. And I think that conversation ought to be had. I'm not happy that the government has gotten itself into this trouble. But at the same time, I'm just sitting and asking myself,
You tell us what
what was all this for? Was it pride that you waited all this while? I won't go to the IMF, I won't do this, I won't do A, B, C, D. And quite frankly, some of the projections in the budget, as we stated last week, are quite frankly ludicrous, because you are in an austere situation, and you are still projecting to overspend your budgets by close to probably 80 to 90 billion Ghana cedis. When, as I said, when the Eswal NDC government, I think during the Kumipreku riot, or the year after the Kumipreku riot, actually posted a budget surplus, So you don't expect this same split to continue. And I think that conversation also ought to be had. How are we expecting the government, or how is the government also gathering up in its loins and restricting its belly by tightening its belly with a tighter belt, and asking rather than asking everybody else to come along and burden share? This burden share is actually quite fraudulent, and I don't think we should be discussing it in a manner that looks as if once you take part in it, either voluntarily or involuntarily, you are doing the nation proud. You are not doing the nation proud. It is the politician who has taken you into this environment, and they need to take full responsibility. The other point I need to make quickly is that this whole conversation about it not being voluntary, look, let's be fair. I can understand that in the Greek situation, there were deliberate laws that the states passed at the time. In this instance, the government has wasted so much time that the natural order of things would have been having had proper conversations and probably leading to some work in parliament for it to be backed by law. But then we'd have seen that I mean, people would have been probably less painful. It could have been less painful than we're having it today. But the point to note is that voluntarily or involuntarily, you have lost money. So this whole thing about people who are it's not a voluntary, it's not in a position, it's already been imposed by the negative macroeconomic environment superintended by the government already, even before the so-called debt exchange occurred. But either way, you've lost. You've lost.
All right, good. Thanks so much for that. Let me bring in, of course, I know Dr. Kingsley Kwabasin is on the line, and I'll get to him in due course. Let me come to the Honorable George Ricketts Hagan. The debt exchange program appears quite innovative, given the economic difficulties we are in. There should be some debt restructuring. I don't know how else this could have been done apart from doing the debt exchange program. I don't know what you make of it, but for some, it appears innovative, even though it will squeeze us a bit, but government calls it burden sharing. We must all share part of the burden we have collectively brought upon ourselves. What are your initial thoughts on the debt exchange program in the manner it's been presented by the government?
Thank you very much. Good morning, Selorm, and good morning to my brother and our colleagues on the panel, joining us by Zoom. I do agree with you that, obviously we were expecting some kind of a restructuring. I mean, we've got a serious debt overhang, and our debt is simply, after doing the debt sustainability analysis, our debt is simply not sustainable. Mm-hmm. And therefore, something needs to be done. But what has been done, or what has been proposed so far, though quite severe, mm-hmm. not quite severe, extremely severe, I'm afraid that would not solve the problem. What they have done so far, and they're talking about haircut, no haircut. Look, we have basically the whole model that they have, with all the assumptions that they have made. And if you put it on a spreadsheet, basically, with what they are telling us, that they are going to be doing 4 different exit bonds, and the rates at which they're going to do them, the 17%, 25 and 41 and all that. Look, and this is a fixed income product, so it tells you that basically when all this is said and done, investors who are going to be affected are actually going to lose 200 billion at the end of all this. So if you are going to lose 200 billion at the end of all this, then, and people are saying that there's not going to be a haircut, then I don't know what you're talking about. Because you can say that
on the principle.
You did well. It doesn't matter whether it's on the principle. Those are cosmetics. I can achieve the same thing by putting my haircut on my principle or on my interest. At the end of the day, you will get the same thing. What the president told us is that there wouldn't be a haircut. Then you had the spinners telling us whether it will be on principle or it's neither here nor there. The fact of the matter is that people are going to lose their investment. Pension funds are going to lose money. Insurance are going to have serious challenges meeting their obligations, and basically this will be added to the hardship that people are already experiencing. That is the truth of the matter. It is not about this or that. And I think sometimes, you see, we all understand the difficulty that we are in, as a country. And we want our government to be honest with us on the situation that is confronting us at the moment and how best we can come out of this. But
you think government has not been honest with us?
They have not been.
Government says that our debt levels are not sustainable.
They are playing with the intelligence of Ghanaians. I mean, why come out and even tell us that we are not going to get a haircut? You can never enter into a restructuring agreement where basically you have said you defaulted. The government of Ghana defaulted on the 1st of December That is the day they were going to roll in all this into. The reason why they were doing that is that they could no longer pay, these bondholders. And that's what we went into that program. The word, whether it is now or will be and all that, I just, I can say that now, if you are rolling in your money, I mean, and you're right to say that, mark to market or market value, whatever your bond is, say at 1st of December, whatever the value of your bond is, including accrued interest and all that, if you do the market value of that particular bond, that's what is being rolled into the new one. So if you were paid on the 1st of December, presumably you would have received your full money. But once the money is going to be rolled into this exchange program, that's where you are going to lose the money from. People will argue that even at the front end, they've already lost money. Through speculations and all that, it's been discounted. And then you have depreciation and inflation, all that coming in. But as far as this program is concerned, you will lose money at the end of 2037 because they have 2027, 2029, 32, and 37. By the time this program is done, the money that is going in, which is 137 billion, that is the debt when you strip off all the treasury bills and all those things that are not going to go into this. Based on 137 billion, the losses on this will be 200 billion. How do you work that out? It's pretty much simple. If I'm to invest my money today, based on a weighted average interest rate, from now until 2037, or whichever of these bonds that you choose, the return, including your principal that will give you, would be short if you use their model of different rates, 0, basically in the first year 5 and 10 thereafter. You are losing 200 billion. That is a fact. And that cannot, this is mathematics. You cannot argue with this. You put it on a spreadsheet, the numbers will come. So to say that we don't have a haircut, we're going to have a haircut. Look, be honest with Ghanaians. Let us know the severity of the situation. And let's see what we can all do. And then when we say we are tightening our belt, let it be all of us tightening our belt. Not that some are tightening their belt and others are loosening theirs.
But we are all tightening our belts. Is that what it is?
No, absolutely not.
No, there are people getting 50% cut in their coupons, in their how do you call it, fuel coupons and allowances and all of that.
We've been in government before.
So
all these things are cosmetics. There are some people, I can tell you there are some ministers who probably don't even know how much they are paid in salary because they don't touch it. Because they don't need it.
Where do they get money? How are you surviving? How are you getting money?
If your petrol your fuel is being given to you for free,
that's going to be cut by 50%.
Well, if maybe you should cut down your unnecessary traveling also by 50%.
They don't get to use V8. They don't get to use V8.
Well, who monitors that? That's what I was telling you. If you want to be serious about this, confiscate all V8, put it in the pool, get people to go there and sign and tell you I'm living here going to Cape Coast. If I'm a government minister, how would you know that when I move my V8 from here, I'm going to Parliament or I'm going to Cape Coast? So these things are, look, be genuine with the people. Let show that it's not enough to say that I'm sorry or things are difficult and I hear your pain. Share, let's see that you are actually feeling it. So all these things are just cosmetic. Oh, don't you think somebody
what would have been good for your side? Indeed, just when the announcement was made, your side came up to say you rejected this and all of that. What would have been acceptable to you?
Well,
or how would you have had this resolved?
In terms of the austerity that we are facing at the moment, the first reasonable thing for anyone to do, even you as an individual, if you are faced with challenges, the first thing you do is to cut your expenditure.
That's what they say they are doing.
Well, they are not doing enough. They are not doing enough. That's what I'm saying, that this 30% and all that, cut 50%, or if your ministers are 80 or whatever number they are at the moment, we have been told that you could do with less than 40 people. So even bring it to 40. You would have saved more money than the 30% in salaries. Imagine, don't cut 30% of somebody's salary. Just get rid of that person in the first place. Get rid of that ministry. That could be, sort of lumped into another ministry. do serious.
Despite the particular focus the president wants to give certain sectors of the economy, like railway, for example.
The president,
our railway sector has been in comatose, for a long time. Now, with the institution of the railway ministry, we're beginning to see some activity in that arena.
Well. He started with 120 ministers.
Because the problems he came to meet were massive.
And look at where we are. After 5 or 6 years,
COVID.
with 120, they can talk about COVID, talk about all sorts of things. This economy was built on straw. Therefore, when the storm comes in, we are heavily exposed. You cannot be the worst performing currency in the world, as if you live in Pluto. This is planet Earth. Everyone is here. Everyone suffered COVID. Why is everyone not at the bottom of the currency ladder but you? Why is your inflation so high? Yes, there are places with high inflation. Why is your depreciation so high? Why is your fuel prices so high? Why is everything you talk, every economic parameter or indicator you talk about in this country is nothing to write home about?
But Honorable, is it not due to the structure of the economy? We've been with this for a very long time. And we know for a fact that a lot of these problems are exchange rates induced or caused. So, for example, if we're able to solve our exchange rate issues, fuel price will come down, a lot of the matters will be resolved, right? So, for example, government knowing this said it was going to resolve this by introducing the 1D, 1F, to ensure that we better our, exports. So we do more exports than we're doing currently.
Yeah.
That will bring us some foreign exchange. That will help us deal with the exchange rate matters. So that is being done. We understand about 127 of those factories are in operation, about 200 various stages of completion. Some activity really is being done.
We were told build 77 factories. I don't know the actual number.
Yes.
But we were told Nkrumah built 77 factories. Yes, you can say that at that time the population of Ghana was small. But people felt it. We've gone past 127. I think we are almost 130.
Okay.
And the question is that where are the factories?
We know of eco-juice.
That's what we always refer to. If you ask of factory eco-juice is really taking a bit of a suffering for all this. Look, these guys or this government promised us proper factories that are going to create jobs for people to do, not money for friends and family and cronies to put into their factory. Existing factory gets painted and labeled a 1D, 1F. That's what I'm saying, that they are playing with the intelligence of Ghanaians. They think we are probably stupid because they do things and get away with it. We have a finance minister who is sitting in office. And I did say that if the finance minister survived to today, it would have been one of the miracles in the world. And it has indeed happened.
It's a miracle that
that Ken Ofori-Atta is still in office.
We'll get to that.
So yes, you are right in the Gettysburg economy where we are a country that imports too much and export very little, and we need to do value addition. That is what led to becoming an industrialized. I disagree with 1D, 1F method of industrialization, but that's a discussion for another day. But they are not actually doing enough. We are now, from what they are doing, we are actually not moving from a Gettysburg economy to production. We are actually moving from Gettysburg now to a Stone Age economy because they are now talking about some of the solutions they are coming up are barter trade. And barter trade, and this is the novel stuff they talk about. Dr. Bamia started this barter trade with the Chinese deal, which was they were going to Sino-Hydro, and then they've come up with
bauxite exchange.
Bauxite, absolutely. Now they come up with they are going to use
gold for oil.
I mean, what a daft idea, and then you think about, these are supposedly people who know what's going on. I don't know what the motivation is, other than they don't have a clue the economy that they are handling at the moment, or as Francis will say, that they really don't know where to go from here.
Very well. Honorable, let me go to Dr. Kingsley Kwabasing. Doc, your group appear not happy. Indeed, you've issued a statement expressing your disapproval with the debt exchange program. What exactly about it are you not happy about? Hello, Dr. Kwabasin.
Good morning.
Yes.
Please, can
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you?
Yes.
Thank you, and good morning to our your cherished listeners. Now, we are talking about an insurance industry that pays on daily basis 4.5 million Ghana cedis in terms of claims, and that translates to approximately about 1.6 billion annually. And as a matter of fact, when the 2015 twin fire flood disaster occurred, we paid in excess of 360 million Ghana cedis. Now, the question is, how were we able to do that? The total assets of the insurance companies as at third quarter is 11 billion 534 million 10,221 Ghana cedis. There is what we call the solvency framework, and that's a framework that has been given by the regulator to indicate the extent to which you are solvent, literally. And that stipulates that there is classification of your assets. In there, the rule is that if you invest in government of Ghana securities, including the bonds that we're talking about, it is assumed that it is risk-free, and therefore they do not discount the value that you've given to the regulator. On the other hand, if you invest in other assets, for example, if you invest in a building, or if you give the value of a building in which you are occupying as an office space, it is devalued by 50% or discounted by 50%. If it's an asset which, if it's a building that you do not occupy, it's discounted at about 30%. But that goes on and on. So depending on the asset classification, there's a discount applied. Now, because of this compulsion or indication of government bonds and instruments being risk-free, the insurance industry has invested over 40% of its total assets in them. And that amounts to about 4.4 billion 613 million 604,088 cedis. That is the value of our investment in them. Now, so the implication is that if this arrangement stands, we have a big challenge. Why? Beyond the figure that I've given you, it is also estimated that about 1.5 billion cedis of our assets is in banks, and that's mutual funds and in bank deposits. So cumulatively, it means that if that is also affected, then cumulatively about 50% of our assets are in our investments will be affected directly and indirectly. That is a difficult situation for us. The question is why? Now, let me give you a simple scenario. Let's assume that you are an insurance company. You have claims to settle in 2 years. The value is 100 million. Currently, you do not have the 100 million because you have invested in securities that we talked about. And so your expectation is that within the next 2 years, you are going to get 30 million, so that by the time your risk crystallizes, you'll be in a position to pay the 100 million claims that you have promised the policyholder. Please note that all the monies that we've talked about, the investment and so on and so forth, are not your money. They are monies of the shareholders and policyholders that you are holding in trust for them. Now, so you have done your calculations and your projections that you'll be in a position to pay the 100 million when it crystallizes in 2 years, planning with the bonds and the instrument that I've talked about. Then you have a situation where in 2023 and 2024, the coupons have been varied. So 2023, per the new arrangements or the debt exchange program, you will not have any coupon or any returns, let's put it that way. And then in 2024, you are going to get 5%. It means that 5% of, let's say, 100 million, if we do those calculations, simply put, you have lost about 25 million approximate. So in 2024, in the next 2 years, you will not be in a position to pay the claims that you have promised your policyholders. Beyond that, as at the third quarter, we have made a net underwriting loss of over 356 million Ghana cedis. What it means is that relying on our core processes and procedures and operations, we are not in a position to meet these obligations because of the factors within the macroeconomic environment, inflation and rapid depreciation of the cedi and so on and so forth. And so our next bet will be to rely on the investment income that to help us achieve the objective for which an insurance company it was set up, that is claims payment. So if there is this debt exchange program, the challenge is enormous because we will not be in a position to be able to honor our obligations, and that is a big challenge for all of us.
Very well. So you just hold that. Yes, just hold your thoughts there. I will come back to you so we get into the details of how you'll be unable to meet your debt obligation or to your obligations to your clients or your customers. Come to Deputy Managing Director, New Patriotic Party. This debt exchange program obviously is going to squeeze a lot of people. What is government really trying to do?
Good morning to you, and good morning to my MP. He's the MP of my constituency, so he's my MP. And to all our viewers and my good friend, what's his name? Franklin Kujo. I know Franklin would always look at the other option of the Bible and scriptures and everything and bash us there, but it's part of it. Unfortunately, we are in a situation where we are neck deep in debt. When you look at the 2023 budget, government spent 74% of the 205 billion. One, public sector, which is about 44 billion. Two, capital expenditure, which is about 27 billion. Three, energy sector, which is about 26 billion plus. And the most interesting part is interest payments on loans from this Fourth Republic, which is about 52 billion. That's the biggest. So it gives us a total of about 151 billion out of the 205 billion. Just going into all these payments and compensations and things.
So this for the 2023 budget?
2023 budget alone.
Great, yeah.
I'm looking at just the 2023 budget. It tells you that there is a fundamental problem. Yes, ever since this Fourth Republic, I don't know any government that hasn't gotten external funding to support its budget. It's always been support from outside. And that is what has kept us till date. And that is where we need to, when we are coming in as a government, we say, listen, let's work towards getting money locally rather than always depending on the foreign support, because it gets to a time you never get out of this. It's a continuum, and government after government, that's how they'll go. So that is what inspired all this 1D, 1F, export base and this. When you look at our export and import cover, you realize that we are now doing more exports than imports, but still there's this problem of repatriation of benefits and all these other things, which is still costing us in our budget. So at the end of it all, you realize that we are choked. As a government, we are choked. You cannot get the external funding. And this was coupled by the appropriations that delayed in 2023. You realize that there was a whole hula baloo about this e-levy. And, I put it on record one time that it was part of the problem why it affected our downgrade, but they didn't put the perspective well, because you realize that we didn't pass it early. We couldn't get the support from external as we always do. So at the end of it all, then it means that they have to downgrade you as a country. That affected us. That made us not go out and get the necessary bonds and things that you use some to pay off the loans, you use some to run your system, as we keep on doing. So it affected our whole maneuvering of the, or running of the economy. And this has brought us neck deep into this problem. Now, it's not a matter of forcing this debt restructuring on the various institutions. We looked at the whole thing. You are going for
it's not a matter of forcing it because you couldn't have forced it.
we can't force it. We cannot. And Attorney General has stated clearly. And you realize that he stated it even before Minister came out to
Of course,
announce
the
it.
minister sought his legal opinion.
Yes, he sought legal
on a
opinion.
number of things he wanted to do.
And as part of it, he
yes.
told him that, listen, you can't force it on the people. Definitely he knows. But he came to announce that, listen, this is the strategy we are taking to help all of us. Which comes first, the chicken or the egg? The truth is that you can give you all your money now as you want to claim for it. No bank, and he knows, no bank in Ghana can say that, oh, if today I'm closing shop, I can pay all my depositors. It can't happen.
Very well.
In that same vein, no country that runs on such bonds and things will tell you that if today everybody is coming for their money, they can give everything to you.
It's not possible.
So, yes.
Yes. So let's just hold it there. I'll take a short break. I'll return. I'll give Alfred Thompson, who is the former managing director of the NIB, former deputy director of the NIB, managing director of the NIB, more time to respond to all the matters, and he will also answer some other questions. This is The Big Issue on 97.3 City FM. We'll be right back.
Name is Gina, and this salon is where I work.
Good morning. Good morning. You've already met your new colleague, have you?
Who was this Kujibisi? He fell from the sky.
I'm so glad there's a man amongst you. You ladies gossip too much.
Hey, girls! Today, Madam came in with a hot, sexy guy. And they were being lobby.
Did Madam think men don't gossip?
The grapevine lies on my lap.
I've noticed a massive decline in our daily proceeds.
I suggest we fast and pray.
The spirit, Hekelabaga, told me today that I will see a man in this family.
He said his wife is dead?
Yes, she was sick.
Hey, what sickness?
Aite, it is your mother that will get leukemia. It is your mother.
I don't like what you are doing at all.
Hey, you want to fight?
Showing every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. with repeats on Friday at 10 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m., and Sunday at 12:30 p.m.
You're welcome back to The Big Issue on 97.3 City FM on City TV. So welcome our TV viewers. We are live on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. We're also live on YouTube. The channel is CityTube. Your comments are welcome via our WhatsApp number 05505858332. The matters for discussion this morning, we are assessing government's domestic debt exchange program and reaction from investor communities. Over 10 labor unions and other institutions have come out to oppose the debt exchange program in the manner it's been presented. We're just trying to look at that and trying to trace the matter from its genesis. My guests on this segment, Franklin Kujo, President Imani Africa, Alfred Thompson, former Deputy Managing Director, NIB, and member of the ruling party, Dr. Kingsley Kwesi Kwabasin, CEO of Ghana Insurance Association, one of those groups opposing the debt exchange program, and the Honorable George Ricketts Hagan, Member of Parliament, Cape Coast South, former Deputy Finance Minister, former Central Regional Minister. These are my guests. So, Mr. Thompson, you were speaking before we took the break, and you were of the view that
I was giving you the genesis of all our budget and its problems associated with it.
Yes, which we know because we've heard a lot of that already. And in 2016, before your government came, you took us down the path of letting us know that our economy was a Georgesburg one. I don't know where we have reached.
And I still believe in that is still a Georgesburg economy.
Over 6 years into the administration,
it doesn't take,
when we were told that in 18 months,
it doesn't take.
So the president at the time did not speak well. He said in 18 months, the economy was going to be transformed.
Okay, that is why you realize that we did a lot of 1D, 1F, and my brother was saying.
So the economy has not been transformed in 18 months.
It's still ongoing. Listen, when you build a factory, it will take you about 5 to 10 years for the factory to be really solid and know that okay, this is a moving concern that you know that it's a going concern that we know that it will not go off the lane. And unfortunately for us, he said that Nkrumah created 77 factories, but it was under their own reign that they came to sell most of these factories.
Some became under the NDC?
PNDC.
No, but still NDC is not their reign.
It's still PNDC. They just removed the P and they continued with the NDC. And some of these factory buildings were converted into churches and other things. Churches that we are not receiving taxes from them, we are not getting anything. So at the end of the day, I mean,
but I help you restore morality to society. Anyway, go ahead.
The morality is another whole topic of its own.
Out of which has emerged the finance minister.
Out of which has emerged the finance minister.
Of which he was also other ministry.
Well,
I'm talking about the current finance minister. The religious nature as a result of churches.
It created all the ministry.
No, but I'm not saying that I'm suggesting that the churches haven't done well.
I mean, they are also doing their part, but I mean, it all comes back to
even the devil knows the Bible.
It all comes back to the. It all comes back to the. I mean, the Bible that he quotes, I think, is worrying some people, but you still quote anyway, whether you like it or not. Every time he gets a chance, you quote from the Bible, and we support him.
Earlier, you mentioned the fact that given all the expenditure items, public sector wages, emoluments, capital expenditure, energy, interest payment, etc., we are choked.
Yeah.
And my question is, when did we realize that we're getting choked? Was that not the picture you got right from the beginning?
It's always been the picture.
Yes, and so exactly the reason why people are questioning some of your expenditure drives. So, for example, establishing or creating 6 new regions. What difference has he made? Rather, a lot of money has been sent there. Things like building a national cathedral, for example. A lot of money is being sent there, and there's actually some allocation, about 80 billion or so, in this current budget, this austerity budget we're trying to raise, trying to focus on very critical areas of society. Sending money to those areas. So it doesn't appear that you are as choked as you want us to be, because your work hasn't really changed. You are doing the same old things, expecting to get new results. So how do you convince us that indeed, because we are choked, we are charting a different path? The path you are charting, even in the 2023 budget, it's not different from what you've been doing right from day one. Creating new regions. Now we are looking to hosting the All African Games, etc. Your work or your path has not been different from the past.
You see, the mere fact that you are in debt doesn't mean that you don't live. As the famous Obeda someone said,
yes,
we still have to continue.
Yes, but what you eat must not be the same as what you were eating when you were very good.
But you manage what you eat.
Yes,
you manage certain expenditures. When he was talking about cutting down of ministers and things, I asked myself, over 80% of our ministers are MPs. Even if you sack them, they are still going to get the MP salary. So it's just a minute bit.
But you do not get the allowances and traveling opportunity and all of that.
No, the traveling opportunities and things, they've cut it. It's cut down. Every traveling, Chief of Staff said you should seek out.
But the point really being made is that these expenditure rationalization measures are cosmetic. They don't really do much.
Every traveling that the president or the Foreign Affairs Ministry goes on, you have both majority and minority in parliament, the parliamentarians traveling with them. He knows. Foreign affairs. So you can't say that there are certain things you have to cut or you can cut. It comes with a job.
How about the talk that some ministries, for example, must not exist?
Like
so Ministry of Information and Communication. In the past, the two were merged.
So
and instead of having like 4 or 5 deputies, you can just have one and then have 2 deputies.
I've taken the Ministry of Information and what do you call it? Communication. I've merged them. All the workers there will still be on government payroll.
Yes, but the very top will not be.
The very top,
heavy.
Who
check? The top will not be very heavy.
And that's where the damage is.
Kojo Oponkroma is an MP. Esla is an MP. Esla is 2 deputies also. Is it one now also? They are all MPs. So where do you go? The only person who you say is not an MP is Fatih, Honorable Fatih from Deputy Information. That is all. That is all. The rest are all MPs. So you realize that it's still on the government to pay them.
No, but you see, what you are not seeing is if there are many, their expenditures are more. So, for example,
not necessarily.
The minister,
the difference between
the minister
an
will have
MP,
to do other things, a lot of other things, traveling, meeting people, doing other things, which will be a burden on the state. Another example: roads. We have roads and highways, we have transport ministry, we have railway ministry. Until recently, we had aviation ministry, and all of that. People think that we can just have Ministry of Roads, and then you subsume transport and all of that under them. And then instead of having about 10 people or even 15 people running these 4 ministries, you can have just 1 and 2 deputies, and the job will be done.
Which you look at it cosmetically is okay, but I'm telling you that about 80% of them are MPs. So the work, or when you take the non-MPs out, the significance on the budget.
Out of the 10, government will not have to spend on V8 and fuel and allowances and traveling expenses and all of that, right?
And government has said that, listen,
no, but government says going to cut those. But yes, of course, it's not serious. Was it a serious, call the minister made?
The minister has announced it.
Yes.
Now let us ask him the details of that.
No, but we've been asking since, and you are here.
No,
we've been asking
definitely
since. When?
Immediately you ask, you should leave everything and come and respond to it.
We've asked enough. Since the budget was passed,
when the president,
we have queried those expenditure rationalization measures, and we are saying that in the format they've been put, we can't seem to know the head and tail of it. You say the V8 have been banned from within Accra travels,
when the president came out with all these measures, he told you that from time to time these measures will be spelled out. That is what we are seeing with the debt restructuring. And if you let me finish on the debt restructuring, I can only plead with the unions. I can only plead with all these. When all this started, and it behoves on communication and how our communication went out on this. There was a committee set up of 5, the Albertasian committee. They were supposed to meet all these groupings or they met the bond holders, not the individuals within the individual corporates within the bond holders. So they started with the individuals and they realized that no, the thing wasn't going to go as planned. So why don't we first of all meet the bond holders? They are the holders of the bond. Speak to them, and they would have to now meet their the people who have invested in them, and then speak to them. So they met the bond holders, and what they did was that they spoke to them, explained all the policy to them. That listen, this is a long-term policy. We know that definitely every year you keep on investing, and you keep on investing in government securities and everything. But now, where we've gotten to is either we tell you that okay, don't invest, keep your money. We are giving you your money, and we go down deep into the hole or the pit, or we have a stop, restructure, and then come out stronger, where every group will benefit. And definitely, listen, every bond you do or every this thing, government sits with you and negotiates the interest rate. It's not an automatic one-off thing. Now, I'm telling you that next year I want to stop all this, like the 52 billion that I'm paying as interest rates, just for me to have that cover to resurface or rebuild.
But how do you expect them to survive? So, for example, the pension, the
and that is why when I was speaking, I said these account holders, they are revolving funds. So every day, every month, every year, you are still getting income coming in or you are getting some money coming in.
And they have to, by the regulations or the guidelines, they have to keep investing a 75% or so into government bonds.
Yes.
And so how do they make money? Because this year, next year, so a lot of people are going to go on pension. So and they are in this fund. Yes. How do they get money?
So I negotiate with you that, listen, instead of giving you maybe, what do you call it, your interest next year, the money you are coming to invest, we'll assume that you use that money to pay off what you have to pay. You will get your 100% back in the next 2-3 years as we've planned, and you are safe. I'm safe. The economy is safe.
You get 100% back when? You don't get 100% back.
It's in about 3 years plus.
Which one?
The
15,
bond,
yes. 15%, 15%, 70%.
It's 75 or so. Then you, 41%. But I mean, it builds up. It builds up. And it's not going to, when we say 15%, it doesn't mean that automatically it will be 15%. They will still negotiate with you. Yes, it could be less, it could be more.
But it could be less. But
it could be less or
as in more, I'm not sure.
Oh, it could be. I mean, once there's a negotiation, depending on how strong and how big your investment is, you have the power to negotiate and negotiate well. So it could be less, it could be more. So let's assume that is how it's going to be. But at the end of the whole thing, this 200 billion that my brother is saying that, it's going to be a haircut. It's not going to happen.
No, but no, let me understand.
Going to be extended.
Are you saying that
the value of your money?
But no, what was the debt restructuring really?
Yeah.
You either extend the tenor, and if you extend the tenor, you are losing money, like it or not.
Immediately, but in the long term,
you're losing money. If you are paying me my principal after 15 years, I need my money today, so I invested so that I could harvest it today.
But your interest is building up.
Which interest?
The interest that is working on
5% interest of about 20%.
I mean,
shaped
the money
shaped to 5%, 10% in the midst of inflation.
Okay,
in
so
the midst of depreciation and everything.
Let me ask you, are a company.
Technically, that money the value is lost. Of course, 1,000 cedis 2 years ago is not 1,000 cedis today.
Yes.
So the value of the money is lost. So that's a haircut.
If you put your economy well, if you put your economy on sound tracking, 1,000 cedis yesterday can be worth 1,200 or even 800 Ghana cedis the next day.
Yeah, so 1,000 cedis, 800 cedis.
Yes.
That's a reduction. Is that
it's a reduction. It can be 1,002 or 800 cedis.
Yes, but
depends.
we are not sure about the 1,002 because we have not proven in the past.
Why are you sure about the 800?
No, because that's the record we have. That is
the record you have previously.
Yes,
but let me give you an example. Yes. DKM. When DKM was being when it was shut down, and for years they were not paid. They didn't come out to pay them.
But some other people haven't been paid as well.
No, they didn't know. DKM got their full money. Everybody got their money.
I'm not sure about having their full money.
Oh, everybody got their money.
Some of them still claim they've not had their money. Nobody is listening to them. Quite a number of other people.
If you haven't got your money, then it means that when the auditors, I think Deloitte or KPMG, when they were doing their work, maybe your this wasn't satisfactory. But they went through all the necessary checks, because everybody can come and say that, listen, can bring a paper and say that I invested. And then what happens? But they also have to do their checks. So based on what they did, they know that they had paid the people. If with DKM that we didn't even have anything to do with it, we are able to pay the people. You think under our own nose we will not pay our people? It will be paid. But I would plead this stance that no, we are not going to accept an
but is it also fair?
You can take your money now.
Is it also fair?
That's what I'm saying. That you can take your money now and it will sink.
Yes. Is it also fair?
Because the economy has gone down.
To invest about 75% of my total, revenue into your bonds or into your instruments, and then we get into this situation. Now you form a committee to come meet me. I make proposals, or we would discuss generally on things to do. You go decide on what you want to do, and you tell me later that this is the position, almost like now, take it or leave it.
Now, with what has happened, the bondholders or the corporate bond issuers can now sit down with government and say that, listen, I cannot invest 75% again in your system because I'm not safe. It could happen. That they can negotiate with them. I'm going to invest in other system, but within the country, not outside the country. So it comes back within the circulation of the currency, so your currency doesn't go haywire. These are things that, in every situation, there is a cure. But let us sit down and have cool heads in having this cure. We should not just get up and say that, let's oppose. Because the moment you start doing that, everybody will start trying to see that, okay, let's see who is stronger. I have to pay you. I haven't got the money now. Let me stagger it.
Let me go to...
So these are things that we should be careful about and make sure that we don't rock the boat. Because the government can give you the money now, but when they give you the money and the economy is not strong, like inflation is going skyrocketing over, let's even assume that inflation becomes 100%, everything is going haywire. What happens to your money? It sinks.
Let me go to Franklin. Franklin, your friend, Alfred Thompson, appears to be offering some hope. That's from the quarters of government. And he says that we do not have to rock the boat. We should just be patient. This stance that we will not agree and all of that is really not the way to go. Have you received some comfort, any comfort from what he's been saying so far?
80 million.
80.
Well, I guess I'm not sure people are being reticent because they don't want to be reasonable. I think they've been taken by surprise, and that's the word, surprise, and that is what ought to be dwelt upon. If this conversation was being had in phases or in a manner that made everybody comfortable, I mean the unions and the trustees comfortable, I don't think there will be this, for lack of a better word, negative. It is essentially the way this has been managed, the communication, starting from we'll not do this, we'll do this, we'll do that. So there's been some erosion of confidence and some amount of credibility that has been lost, which is the reason why it's very difficult for people to believe these things going forward. So, yes, some people, obviously people are reasonable once you explain things to them. And I suspect that is what is lacking in this state.
All right. Let me come to Dr. Kwabasin. Dr. Kwabasin, government is also put in place some arrangements. So, for example, the Bank of Ghana is spoken. The Fiscal Stability Council is also spoken. The Finance Minister also earlier made a point that there's going to be the establishment of a financial stability fund of about 15 billion that will help institutions like yours or your members access some funds to be able to do things within this period. That means that all is not lost. You can access some funds if you really want to. Dr. Kwabasin. Dr. Kwabasin? All right, I don't think we okay, so did you hear me, Dr. Kwabasin? Well, I think we will have to reconnect with him, and yes, we'll have to reconnect with him because we need him to actually respond to this and the other people who...
Thank you once again.
Okay, very well.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now, yes. I think your connection, we will have to get back to you on a better line. So we'll get back to you on a better line. My producers will get back to you on a better line. Honorable Rickett Hagan, he sought to assuage the fears of many people. Yeah. Okay, I think we have Dr. Kwabasin now. Let's try again. Doc?
Yeah.
Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. I think that we proffered some indications. First, we're saying that at least the accrued interest or coupons must be paid to us. That was the first thing that we talked about. And then we also talked about the fact that looking at our operations, now, if you take insurance, we take premium and we pay a multiple of that premium, which we call sum assured. So, for example, you give us a premium of 100 Ghana cedis, or let's say 400 Ghana cedis. And then there is a liability we can pay as high as, it depends on the situation, but we can pay as high as 100,000 or 200,000 and so on and so forth. So if the Financial Stability Fund is what it is that we want to go, then we are suggesting that then let's pass on our claims to the fund, and then the fund will be able to pay the claims in our stead, because that is a way that will help us. Because if we do not do that and we go along the lines of doing away with our returns or on investment, which we are calling the coupons, to the extent that we are unable to have enough money to pay our clients, that is a challenge. So I believe that if we can import into the conversation of the Financial Stability Fund, that we will be allowed to cede our claims to the fund. I believe that then in that case, that will help a lot.
Doing that will mean that you are not actually going to feel anything. You are not going to be part of the burden sharing. You are just going to offload everything to government. And I'm not sure the 15 billion CD fund will be enough to deal with what you are talking about. So is it the best way you suggest to government that it can be done?
You know, every financial system is underpinned by assumptions. You will agree with me on that. And once we have a situation where the assumptions are being disturbed, the basic assumptions under which the financial system was established are being disturbed, then it means that there are two things. Then we have to go back to the system and then look at what we can do together. Maybe a way out is for us to engage. Then let's look at what assumptions underpinned the financial stability operations as insurers. If we can look at that and then see how there will be convergence in terms of that, I believe that will help. So the way forward to me will be
we're still having quite some issues with his line, but we'll work at it. Let me come to Dr. Kwabasin, just hold it there. Let me come to the Honorable Ricky Tegan, and then we'll come again to you. Government appears to be putting in place some other things. So there's a regulatory forbearance on liquidity and solvency. There's a Ghana Financial Stability Fund. There's what they call the accounting treatment, and a few other things, hoping that this will help the pressure on the key institutions so they'll be able to operate and help us a bit more. The Financial Stability Fund, for example, has been established so that access to obligations. This obviously is born out of a system that has been thinking of what the repercussions of these debt exchange program will be. Your thoughts on these measures?
Selorm, the sadness in all of this is the idea or a policy decision by government that pension funds, for instance, should put 75% of their monies in government bonds. The reason is simple, that all across the world, government securities are deemed to be safe. Financial text telling you that usually they tell you government investment is risk-free. There is obviously some risk, but it is deemed to be safe. Usually. Well, yes, usually. Now, for government to convince pension fund, because there are other investment vehicles, instruments that pension funds are usually barred from investing in. We have hedge fund products, we have derivatives, we have private equity and all. These are all risky areas to go to. But the returns there are also quite high. But the reason why they are prevented from doing this is that because they are highly risky, though the returns are high, if it goes pear-shaped or if it goes wrong, then people will not be able to access pension in the future. And therefore, though the returns from government investment are not going to be as high as these alternatives, but at least what you want pension funds to be is to be safe, over and above higher rates and all that, that you want to be able to pay people who go on retirement a decent amount of money to have a decent life. Now, it's like being given to a relative, say, I wouldn't say father or mother, that's a bit extreme, but your parents are traveling and handing you over to your auntie or your uncle to look after you, knowing very well that with that family member, you'll be safe. Member who abuses you. this is the situation we are in at the moment. The government that we trusted, that has access to put 75% of our monies in their securities, is the same government who has mismanaged Ghana's economy to an extent that he's asking us to pay for it. Now, come to this financial stability thing. Another thing is because the discussion on this is not being done or done properly. That's why we are having some of these challenges. If all these groups, government sat down with them when they were conceiving this to discuss with them the best way forward. You know, Alfred talked about something which I thought was quite important. That look, let's sit down and say that, okay, even the 75% that you told us to put into this, maybe things have changed. So let's look at reducing that amount so that we reduce our exposure to you as a government. It's become a unilateral. Do this even against an Attorney General.
But the Attorney General says that what the Attorney General really says is that it could be voluntary, which is about 4 or 5 questions refer to the Attorney General for his opinion. Let me just quickly go through them.
Yeah.
So so the request is, so Attorney General is speaking to the Finance Minister. Your letter bears office on the following questions. 1, the legality of a unilateral attempt by government to introduce CACs directly into the bond agreement. CACs actually mean collective action clauses.
Yeah, sure.
All right. B, the plausibility of an indirect approach by passing an act of parliament or legislative instrument enacting a collective action mechanism in relation to bonds, including a voting percentage threshold for effecting changes to the bond agreements as a general law in Ghana going forward and the timing of the passage of such an act or legislative instrument. C, whether under Ghanaian law, executive action, that is executive instruments, emergency powers, can be employed to impose CACs on bondholders. D, whether a voluntary agreement, considering the commercial contract nature of this transaction, can impose CACs on bondholders. So essentially, what the finance minister or ministry was asking the Attorney General's opinion on is that can government unilaterally decide to vary the terms of the agreements? So, for example, I get into some agreement, and these are contracts. Before you buy a bond, you enter into an agreement with the body, or in this case, government. Can government unilaterally alter or vary the terms? Attorney General is saying, in his opinion, that 1, in the absence of agreement by the parties, it would be unlawful for the government to unilaterally introduce CACs into bond agreements and may constitute an event of default under clause 12 of the terms and conditions of the bonds issued under the program. So the first question about government unilaterally doing it is a no-no from the Attorney General. The second point about using an act of parliament or a legislative instrument enacting a collective action mechanism in relation to bonds, which means that if a number of people or a group or a number of people or bondholders, maybe majority of them decide to go this way, it means that all the others will have to follow, whether they dissented or not. This is what the Attorney General said. So the indirect approach of the enactment of an act of parliament or legislative instrument prescribing a collective action mechanism in relation to bonds is plausible, insofar as the proposed inclusion of a voting percentage threshold for effecting changes to bond agreements does not interfere with any accrued rights of any party or third-party beneficiaries of bond agreements, and also does not operate retrospectively to impose limitations that adversely affect the personal rights and liberties of any party to a bond agreement beyond their will. What he's saying in English simply is that the agreement has been signed already. Things are in motion. Rights have accrued. You cannot right now go to Parliament to get a new law to affect those accrued rights already. That would mean that you are going back retroactively or retrospectively to affect the accrued rights, and that is unlawful. Legislation, apart from very few, are not supposed to be retrospective. They are supposed to be prospective. So in as much as these rights have accrued, you cannot change them. You can only do so going forward. So in essence, it's a no-no. On the third one, under Ghanaian law, executive action. Executive action means that government could, minister or president could issue an executive instrument. An executive instrument is simply law being made or law made by the executive. The usual process of lawmaking is that you must go through the parliamentary process, a certain parliamentary process or representation process to get a law passed. But under executive action, like the president issues an executive instrument, we saw a lot of that in the COVID era. The only reason why you can do so will be under emergency powers, etc., things like that. But you cannot do so to impose CACs on bondholders. So this is what the Attorney General said executive actions, including executive instruments and emergency powers, may not be lawfully employed to impose CACs on bondholders, since they will not operate retrospectively and may also constitute an event of default under Clause 12 of the terms and conditions of bonds issued under the program and a breach of the terms of the agreement. So that's also a no-no. On the fourth one, on the voluntary engagement. Voluntary engagement means that the two parties, the bondholder and issuer, will come together and agree that, okay, this is what we want to do. So, for example, a bondholder will meet government and say, okay, I agree to the voluntary thing. I agree to the no interest for 2023. I agree to the 2027, 29, 32, 2037 arrangement. Now that's voluntary, so we agree. This is what the Attorney General said about that. Voluntary engagement with relevant parties to bond agreements would be able to produce the outcome of a voluntary modification and inclusion of CACs on bondholders. So it means that of all the four questions asked the Attorney General or his opinion sought on, it's just the fourth one, which is on the voluntary arrangement, that Attorney General said was plausible or was the way to go. That is why, if you realize, in all the finance minister's engagements and comments, he tries to emphasize the voluntary nature of this arrangement. Yeah. Whether in practice what is happening is voluntary, it's also another matter. So, Honorable Representative, and this provides
so
the date of the letter, of the letter is 18th November, which means that before the minister came out to say all of that, as it is customary, he sought the legal opinion of the Attorney General. So this is the legal opinion of the Attorney General.
So you know, without even reading the finance minister's letter to the Attorney General, by reading the answers of the Attorney General, will take you to the mindset of the finance minister. And it tells you that, you know, the finance minister, look, the finance minister has either become power drunk or he doesn't really understand, you know, the Public Financial Management Act. And even his own, you know, in his previous life as an investment banker that we all were, I want to ask the finance minister that, would you, in your previous life, take a unilateral action against your bondholders who held bond with Databank and say that you are going to alter the bond as a result of some challenges without actually sitting down with them to discuss it? Some of the options he was seeking advice on, our Attorney General, you know, this EIs, and even the emergency. This is where the power drunkenness comes in. That could I ask my cousin to use emergency powers to push bondholders to agree to what I'm trying to do? It gives you his mindset. And then the question is that, look, forget about the law is one thing. Okay, the opinion the Attorney General has offered is one thing. But the feasibility in practice of how these things can be achieved itself is another problem. Because look, if you are not careful, even on voluntary basis, if you do such a thing, you are going to create a problem for the whole profile of the bond. Because you cannot alter the same bond for some people and then say to others that you may or not. Look, we are opening ourselves into class actions and so many things that are going to happen. And it's simply because the finance minister failed to sit down and get a buy-in. When they say voluntary, this is what it's about. get a buy-in. Even somewhere, he's talking about, if I'm able to get a majority or a few, can I push the others to come along? You don't do things this way. And even the speed that it tells you that, another thing, I can see there's a lot of pressure on him. That's another thing you can get out of this letter, that there's a pressure on the person who's asking the question.
Yes.
And it's understandable because of the situation that, we find ourselves in. But the manner in which he had gone about all this is what is creating some of the problem. Now, to do with this financial stability fund, this is another thing that you should discuss with pension companies, particularly insurance companies, who basically live by paying claims.
So they met the Chamber of Corporate Trustees. In fact, the 5-member committee, there was a member or somebody appointed by the corporate trustees on it. But when we spoke to the chamber, what they told us was that when the group met them, they made suggestions to them, but none of those suggestions were incorporated into the final thing they saw. So it leaves them to question whether it was necessary to come and meet them at all. They said it appeared that government's mind was made up already.
Two questions. When did they meet them? And why is it that what they discussed with them turned out to be different? The man has his own mind. He doesn't understand public financial management. He believes that he is power drunk, and he thinks that in his position, with his cousin as the president, he can do what he likes. How can people trust you when you go into an agreement with them and come out to do something completely different from what you have agreed?
That's why he was seeking a legal opinion.
This is the problem with the finance minister. And a lot of things, and it's a shame he's still there, going to continue the same damage.
People couldn't move him out.
And
we'll get to that.
We couldn't, unfortunately. We couldn't.
You can't.
Eventually,
we'll get into that in the next discussion.
If you go through history, history tells you that people who take stands like that will eventually go. But how long? The problem is that he would have damaged so much by the time he's ready to go that it will be difficult to salvage any meaningful economy from what he has done. That is the sadness about it.
Are you saying that this finance minister hasn't done anything right at all? I mean, he obviously has some good things he wants to do or has done, for which reason the president feels that he's a man to continue doing that. Are you saying he's not, despite the difficulty you are facing today,
we have said this time and over again that a lot of the things this government intend to do are actually wishful thinking that is never realized. Because when you go through the budget, they have a problem. When they are being downgraded, they don't understand it. They are saying, but we have talked about so many great things that we are doing to fix this economy. Why are these people downgrading us? And then they come out with, people are sitting behind their computers in Washington downgrading us. You sat behind your computers on 2021 to get 3 billion euro bond. The finance minister told us in Parliament, when I asked him a question, that how much do you spend on a roadshow? He said the beauty of COVID is that technology allowed us to sit in Kempinski to do an euro bond of 3 billion. When they sit in Washington to downgrade that 3 billion, then you are saying, the people didn't visit Ghana. You didn't visit Washington, you got 3 billion. So, on the financial stability thing, this is also something that needs to be negotiated because you need to be able to do. And these are simple calculations. I've given it to a banker who pretty much understands these things. That you can do at the back of the envelope calculation to know exactly the quantum of the losses or the haircut that is going to happen. Why would you put a financial stability fund there to cushion people if you say there's not going to be any haircut? There are claims and things that are going to come up. So you need to know what is the quantum of this financial stability fund that will be able to mitigate any losses that will be incurred by these people. You haven't done that. You just come and say wishful thinking, financial stability fund. 15 billion. Well, is 15 billion enough? We are talking about 200 billion here in losses. So you are talking about 15 billion. Do you know how quickly 15 billion will go?
If target size, the Financial Stability Fund is being established with a target size of 15 billion.
That itself tells you that
provided by the government.
It tells you that they don't understand it because there's a clear mismatch as to what they have put there as what they will use and mitigate this than what is actually or what is likely to happen. There are claims, there are pensions, there are all this. Now, the question then becomes, even this financial stability fund, where is the money going to come from?
From development partners and government.
Okay. No, and government. Development partners. Do you know how much development partners actually give us?
No.
In the budget? It's about 2 billion or something. That's what they give us. 2 billion. And that's even becoming difficult these days to get it because they have their own problems. Who did they sit down? Which development partner is going to be partnering them in paying for losses of problems that they have created? The very people we owe money to, that we are struggling, are the people we are going to go to get this stability. You know, they put things, the development partner, name them. Who are they? Is it which development partner? Is this the multilateral development partners or?
No, they couldn't have gone into those details. Well, so development partners will capture all of them. If it's even one or two of them.
Well, if you have nothing to say, that's what you say. That development partners. I want to know the development partners. Come to the finance committee. Don't tell and if the finance committee knows who the development partner, who has agreed to provide this support to us. At the moment, we don't even have credibility to get these development partners to do anything with us. They want to see that we have an IMF agreement, at least a staff level agreement.
Which will happen
before, well, let's wait for it. I mean, with this government, you know, when they talk about something that we are going to eat, let's wait for the food. You know, even when they are cooking it, you cannot be sure you will eat it. So the problem here is that, and then again, apart from where the money is going to come from, which is, if they say, I haven't seen that, but if they say it's, what is it called, 15 billion,
yes.
That is inadequate. It's a complete mismatch to the quantum of risk that is out there. And this money doesn't give confidence to the insurance companies. Now, apart from where the money is coming from, which I know that
So government will do some, and development partners.
Now, the last bit of this is that then you ask yourself, okay, they have put this amount of money that they are going to give. Is this money free? Or are the insurance companies or those who have the obligation to their client going to pay for this money? Of course, it's not free. And you know what is going to happen in the end? The same old problem. If you remember the financial bailout, where they wasted 25 billion in saving, in saying that, no, collapsing bank, they never saved them. NIB was in worse situation than most of the banks that were collapsed. Worst situation. But what did government do? Government did well in saving NIB. And they could have done the same in saving a lot of the banks and kick most of these corrupt officials out. And the government has the power in its hand to ban some of these guys, you know, from ever working in the financial industry for 10 years or whatever. By the time they come back to it, the industry would have been completely different. They wouldn't even be able to recognize it.
Very well.
But that didn't happen. So what is going to happen in the end? This money, you and I are going to be levied to pay. In the end, that's what is going to happen. The same thing. There's a financial bailout levy, which we are paying. This will become the same. And then you wouldn't know where the money has actually gone. And the projections they have made, it's not going to be the case. So in the end, this one will turn into about some 200, 300 billion, at least 200 billion. And then they will come and say that we didn't know the extent of the problem. Now we know. So you guys have to pay for it.
All right, let me take another break. When I come back, Mr. Thompson will respond to some of these. Of course, you have adequate time to deal with that. Franklin is also waiting to have a bite of it. Franklin, before that, was it not the same Financial Stability Council you were part of? Is it different?
It was the dollar stability.
Oh, no,
okay, that was a dollar one.
There was a conversation about the CD and
okay, so yes, so it's all right. So that's okay.
It was a mere advisory body, not an implementation.
Okay, that's okay. So we'll take a quick break, return, and then get further responses and get into the discussion further. The big issue, 97.3 and CCTV. Don't go away.
Bronya, hey, high sense Bronya, don't call me. High sense mo be biara free shapo. Every 15th December, Ekopim 8th January. A high sense bronya don't come in. A woman send you a wire thing. Naso Udonti. High sense ya teten yamana to say who? Yan Shama Undi bronya no Sibia. And to Uber Raya showroom. When a dear, a Yopia pocket level. Showroom Yamanina. A bronya don't come in. TV, fridge, freezers, air conditioner, smartphones, sound system, and it be beer or high sense showroom beer. And your high sense bronya don't come in. And maybe beer and tetel and corner here. To high sense DOB bronya no feeling. And 15th December, and come 8th January. And your high sense bronya don't come in. High sense, everyday prices for everyday people.
Come back to the big issue. We are live on 97.3 City FM. We are live on DSTV channel 363, Go TV channel 182. We are on YouTube at CityTube, and we are also on City TV, obviously. So we are discussing the matter of the debt exchange program that was announced on Monday. It was announced on Sunday, but launched on Monday, and a lot of unions and institutions have opposed it. They say it is not good for them, or it's not good for the country in its current form. Government has said that they have up to 19 December to subscribe, if you like. They say it is not good enough. Government also says that it's open for discussions. Indeed, the Deputy Finance Minister told me on Monday that there's nothing cast in stone. They are ongoing with engagement. So hopefully, I'm sure a few trade-offs here and there will be made. Ricky Segan, Honorable, has had a say on what he thinks of the Financial Stability Fund and all of that, and a few other issues. Alfred Thompson is a former Deputy Managing Director of the NIB and a member of the ruling party. What do you say about all of these? 15 billion for the Financial Stability Fund. The insurance CEO, Ghana Insurance Association, Dr. Kwabasin, also thinks it's inadequate. How are we going to do all of that? I mean, 15 billion for an anticipated, should I say, loss or risk of about 200 billion. It's a drop in the ocean. How are we going to do that?
Okay. First of all, start with, the opposition has got a field day in trying to taint the minister's name black for negotiations not to go on as planned. And I need to correct this. There was no unilateral decision taken by the finance minister. If there is a unilateral decision, I don't believe he would have written to the Attorney General. If there is a unilateral decision, I don't think he would have formed the 5-member committee to do negotiations with the bondholders. I don't think he would have sat down with even his committee or anyone to say that, okay, let's see how we can come out of this together. And I don't think he would have said sorry to Parliament and said that, listen, let us work together to bring the economy back on track. So let us not go that tangent and let us not start painting people black where we know negotiations are going on, so that when people are going into the negotiations, they have a perceived mind that, oh, minister is taking a unilateral decision, so he wants to, they have to go and challenge him and make sure that this thing doesn't work out. I don't think it will help this country. I don't think it will help all of us. So let us come together to the table with cool minds. And I'm glad that upon all the turmoil going on, Minister has been able, Honorable Ken Ofori-Atta has been able to have had a cool mind to at least work within these tangents up to this stage. It's not easy to go under this. When you look at the letter, and that's why I intentionally asked you that, when was the letter written? It was written on the 18th of November, far before he came to do the announcement. And when you are asking certain questions, these are questions that maybe the committee would have gone and have asked certain things, or they would have said certain things, and they would have brought some information back. So the information that you would ask the Attorney General will be information that he's received from all these maybe meetings and things that he's had, or even advice that is coming from his outfit. Because I don't believe that he sat down alone and decided that, okay, let me ask these 4 salient points and see the responses that will be given. Now, he talked about mismanagement. When it comes to mismanagement, then I'm going to bulk Parliament as well to everything that is going on in the mismanagement of the economy. Because you approve every year, budgets upon budgets, you approve them appropriations, you approve everything that is going on, you approve all the loans that you are taking. So when we take all these things and you are mismanaging it and you keep on giving us the loans, then you are part of the problem.
The way it works, there's a majority minority. The
Recently, there was a loan that they were the finance ministry was taking. They approved 500 and they left 200 and something. You know, am I lying? They approved some and they left some. So they can, if they want to, say that no, we are not approving this, because the other portion of the loan, they said that they don't believe in what he was going to do with it, and so they were not going to approve it, and they did not approve it. But life went on. So if year upon year you've been approving loans, if year upon year you've been working with a person and you are still saying that it's mismanagement, then you are part of the mismanagement. So let us not go that tangent. Let us see how we can work together to bring this economy back on track. I've talked about, you see, the main problem we've had here is the communication aspect of this whole thing. I told you from the beginning that they were dealing with the first aspect of communication, where they were dealing with the bondholders themselves. Then other thing they could have done, the arbitration committee should have gone to the corporate institutions that form majority of the bond.
But did they have time? I think they had to do it quickly.
They had to do it quickly. But you see, it's not helping us. So they need to sit down with them. Because now, as it appears as if it's a sole decision from the government that this is the way we are going, take it or leave it. But where we are, when you go deeper into it, you realize that we have to take certain decisions that will help the country in its entirety. So they need to sit down with them. I mean, everything should be transparent. Show them the records, show them what is on, and tell them that, listen, it's either or. Either we go in together and come out together, or we stop it here and we all fall into the ditch together. And then what happens? The country goes haywire. Who gets its money? When a company has gone bankrupt and you send it to court, you get nothing because the company is bankrupt. We don't want the government to become bankrupt. We want to revive everything that has gone maybe wrong, or things that haven't gone the way it should go. And we know it's saddled with, the main thing is the debt, sustainability, which has gone beyond the threshold that it should go, or it's going beyond the threshold that it should go. So we need to now see how we can cushion and put everything together. And that is why it says that I need interest waivers or interest payment waivers, where I would have the chance to be able to work within the system and then come back, and then we know that we are all on the same level. When we do that, at the end of it all, what we are asking is that let us work together to build a nation. A nation cannot be built by one person. A nation cannot be built by one government. Government upon government, if we go today and you come in tomorrow, you will still need them, because they cannot use the next 4 or 5 years to rectify or come back to have a clean slate. So let us work together. And you see, it behoves on the president, and he knows the trust he has in his minister to deliver up to a stage. That is why when the majority caucus went to see him, he told them that, listen, give me some time. I want him to finish 1, 2, 3 jobs for me, and then I can show him the exit. But for now, I need him to and see that, let us have that trust in the minister that, yes, whether we like it or not, he was part of the team, or he is the leader of the team that we've gotten to this stage.
The financial stability fund, how will it be funded? 15 billion.
He has given us the assurance that, listen, I will take you out of this. I am leading it to take you out. At least let him show us the way. Whilst he's doing that, we work together to come out of it.
And the way is a debt exchange program, which is being resisted.
That is the novel program they've brought so far. You see, you are going to negotiate with a team who are asking you that, show us your sustainability plan. If you have a loan, or if you are in debt and you are going to the bank to seek for more loan, the first thing they'll ask you is that, how are you going to pay the debts? And you have to show a plan that shows that, listen, at the end of it all, I can pay, I can manage this debt, and I can spread it in such a way that at least I'll have that relief to work within the system. That is what he's doing now, and it's novel. And we need to support such a thing. Now, looking at the Financial Stability Fund, and looking at his own, his own debt exchange analysis maturity profiles, you look at Exit Bond 1 for the first year, it says 17.47 billion. If in year 1 we have 15 billion in the fund, and the 15 billion is not from A to Z, from the beginning to the end of the fund, at least we know that is for next year. So if next year they need about 17 billion and you are working with them on a 15 billion fund.
But the document doesn't say it's for next year. It just said the fund.
It says you are going to, yes, you are targeting 15 billion. And you know, budgets are done year upon year. And it's a budget that they've put in together.
So you are telling us that we should.
So I believe that it's not going to be just for the whole process. Because the process is not a 1 year process. It's an ongoing process. So definitely year upon year, they will be finding money to put in the fund to make sure that they cushion all these insurance and everything that is going on. So that is why I keep on saying that they need to sit down with the team, the main players within the bond industry, and tell them that, listen, your bond is not lost. Everything is not lost. We have put in such measures like the Financial Stability Fund to make sure that when it gets to maturity or when you have insurance claims and everything and you need to do that, you can work through your bankers because it's the Bank of Ghana is going to support the banks to do this. So it's the banks that will be paying all these things off. So when you look at it, when you go into details, in detail, you realize that they have put in every measure that will make sure that nothing will be lost. And that is why we keep on saying that there is no haircut. There is no haircut when you look at the whole program. But you need to do it in such a way that government won't lose out, the bondholders won't lose out.
How do people trust government? There appears to be trust issues. President came out about a month ago when all of this, that there will be no haircuts on pension trust, on pension funds, so your pension funds will not be lost. He said quite a few things. Prior to that, he said we are not going to IMF. Finance Minister reiterated that in even very, very tough terms. All that they said they will not do, they are doing. So how sure are you that
the deputy minister after the president, the deputy finance minister after the president came and said that there would be a haircut?
Yes. So there appears to be trust issues. How sure are we that all of these things we are being told now will happen, judging from the fact that in the past, what they told us or what you guys told us you will do, you've not done. And what we feared is what we are experiencing now. How do I trust you the next time?
When I took you through all these and I told you about the SFS, FSF, I made you understand that when we put all these together and they are getting their funding through the banks to make sure that they pay all the maturities and those who are affected or they need to make claims and everything, it shows that at the end of the day they have been able to pay. And that will not constitute a haircut.
They'll put your hair back on.
When you look at the whole structure of what is being put in place, it's not, government is not going to lose out. Government cannot lose out, and also the bondholders cannot lose out. That is why.
How are we going to? That is
why I kept on saying that the arbitration committee would have to meet like the teachers union, like the nurses, like the insurance and all these other bodies to explain and show them. They should show them
to pay back this. Everybody is saying that we might see a tax someday, like we're seeing for the COVID and financial sector,
remember?
Is it likely, or is it a case that we most likely see? How are we going to fund it?
You see,
government, I don't know if there was any provision in the budget for this 50 billion. And the development partners, we don't know how we're going to get it.
And how much they are bringing.
How are we going to fund this?
He made a nonsensical approach of the gold for oil.
He said it was a daft idea.
Yes, a novel thing. And that is where I sometimes pity my opponents who do not understand what is going on. You remember that across the world, when the dollar was affected, when US increased their interest rates, the dollar devalued almost every currency across the world, apart from the rubles. Why was it? Because at that time, Russia had come out to tell us that, listen, I am not going to sell my energy or my gas or anything for you if you are not ready to pay me with the rubles. So it means that they semi-de-dollarized the system in which if you haven't got dollars, then you cannot buy from them. And it made their currency strong, isn't it? Now, you have gold. You always, every month, you go and look for over 400 billion to buy crude. You have gold, and you've told yourself that, okay, 20% of all the findings or all this thing that are accrued from the gold, I'll buy with cedis. Turn it into gold. When you turn that into gold, you have someone who is buying the gold and is going to pay for the gold.
Is that how we're going to get money to fund the
I'm coming. I'm giving you a scenario
maybe
where he feels, oh, this one is a silly idea, but it's not doable.
Extremely.
You will see it that way, but you see, every time you have to think outside the box.
But,
you don't only look within the box. It's not more or less. You see, you call it butter,
but
more or less
that's what it is.
No,
it's
more or less
commodity. Commodity for commodity.
It's commodity, but definitely there will be someone picking the gold and someone paying for this thing. And the dollar that you derive from the gold out of the CD, which instead of putting the CD there,
it's just like the oil for food program we saw in Iraq, which later ended in a very
you would have gone, maybe you would have gone to the international market seeking for this thing every time, and these are the problems you are having in sometimes funding our budget. But you are not blocking over 400 to 600 every month. Is increasing because of the amount of crude you are buying.
What happens after 19th December if the people are not do not subscribe to it? What happens
to what?
To government is giving up to 19th of December for the bondholders to subscribe to come around the table. But they've given that date. A lot of people say they've not heard from the banks. The banks really, in terms of the pension, the pension funds are the custodians. They are very important in a lot of this.
You did not let me finish all my submissions.
Oh, you've not finished?
Yes, I was still going on with my submissions.
I'll give you 1 minute to just finish.
You see, you gave him a lot of time. They need that we know that you are empowered, that you should explain things more.
Go ahead.
You don't give us the time.
I'll give you 2 minutes. Just go ahead.
Because you had the time to say the nonsense of everything. Okay, so when you look at this gold for oil thing, definitely the person buying the gold will give the dollars to pay for this thing, and these are going to be negotiated already. So it's not as if you are now going to look for a buyer. You sit down, you put every parameter in place, you sign every distance. So every time every month I'm supplying you so much of gold at the current market price. I pick it. You pay directly to these people to pick. Deliver oil. So it's not as if
but there have been questions asked how the BDCs will survive in this. Whether Bank of Ghana will be ready to provide forex support for them to do
because there will be an account that all these monies will be paid to. So it's going to work with the BDCs. You can't work in isolation.
Because people think that government is going to be working with, for example, GOIL.
No.
As the one with government interest.
The government is going to work with the BDCs. So they are going to do all these things. All we need to do is to make sure that we have the gold. Where gold is being sold, the person who is receiving it and paying the money into the account, and the monies are given to the BDCs to do what they have to do, and they do best. And in that same way, that is how you can repay all these debts that have gone on. Listen, we said something, yet is and truly, we are sitting on a lot of natural resources.
And you didn't finish it. Bad management, bad economic management.
6 years later, I'm still.
And we are sitting on a lot of natural resources that have not been transformed into finished products. And that is what is affecting us. So ongoing, we've put policies in place. Now we have to start the work that has to be put in place, because we realized the same thing that happened with the oil, that when we started with the oil, because we're in a rush to make sure that we turn the oils to good use and not to be seen as the ajengo that people claimed it was. At least we put the necessary things or the few things in place. Now we need to turn that whole oil structure into a finishable product in Ghana. The same thing we'll do with all the bauxites and other natural resources. Once we put all those things in place, we have because it's ongoing. They've opened all these mineral resources funds and what do you call it?
Yes, the
MIF and all these things. They are putting the policies in place. Once the policies are done and they are done well, it doesn't take one day for policies to be drawn, and everything will go through Parliament. Parliament will know everything that is going on. The same Honorable Reketegan are the same people who will sign it and come and approve it and come and tell us that it's mismanaged. So at the end of the day, it comes back to us.
I'll give you ample time, right? So all or 2 days ago, issued or wrote to the banks, Chief Executive Officer, Ghana Association of Banks, and said a number of things, providing reliefs, what they call regulatory reliefs for banks, effective 23rd December 2022 until further notice. I go through some of these reliefs, and I'll get all of you to comment on the parts of them you want to. It said, 1, reduction of cash reserve requirement ratio to 12% on Ghana cedi deposits. 2, maintain CRR as a cash reserve requirement. Maintain CRR of 12% on foreign currency denominated deposits to be held in foreign currency. 3, reduction of capital conservation buffer from 3% to 0%, effectively reducing the capital adequacy ratio from 13 to 10%. 4, new bonds will be fully deductible in determining financial exposure to banks to counterparties under Section 62(8) of the Banks and Specialized Deposits Taking Institutions Act 2016, while old bonds will not be deductible for that purpose. 5, risk weights attached to new bonds to be set at 0% for capital adequacy ratio computation and at 100% for old bonds. Increase in tier 2 component of regulatory capital from 2% to 3% of total risk weighted assets. 7, increase in allowable portion of property revaluation gains for tier 2 capital computation from 50 to 60%. 8, issuance of guidance on standardized accounting treatment of debt exchange impact following engagement with external auditors. Banks are expected to 1, submit daily data to the Bank of Ghana on liquidity ratios and dynamics, including access to interbank market and cost of financing, to enable Bank of Ghana to continuously monitor liquidity trends. 2, banks are expected to pre-position assets for eligible collateral under Bank of Ghana's Emergency Liquidity Assistance Framework, that's the ELA. They are also supposed to or expected to activate liquidity management plans promptly as needed. Example, interbank borrowings, use funding lines available, intra-group funding if it exists, use up balances with corresponding banks, etc. 4, access Bank of Ghana's repurchase or reverse repo window exclusively with new bonds if no interbank or other market-related funding is accessible. 5, banks are expected to access Bank of Ghana's ELA as needed using new bonds and other eligible collaterals, excluding old bonds. 6, suspend the declaration of and payment of dividends and other distributions to shareholders forthwith. And the last one, banks are expected to access the Ghana Financial Stability Fund as a last resort liquidity backstop. So this is what the Bank of Ghana has said to the Association of Bankers. Franklin Kojo, I come to you. I know a lot of other things have been discussed. Your quick bite on that and what you make of this briefly.
Well, first of all, I think I have a small point on the Financial Stability Fund, right? If you're looking for 15 billion from development partners, hello, there's news. Some of these development partners themselves have challenges, so I'm not too sure the terms under which this will be arranged. Why not the government take a critical look at its expenditure for the coming years and shave off close to 4 billion Ghana cedis and put that money in there for now? I think once they demonstrate that they are able, then I'm sure those who may be reluctantly willing, bilateral, should I call it, associates of ours who may be reluctant in giving us money would say, okay, well, I see that there's a plan to rein in excess expenditure by the person asking me for money. But quite frankly, they don't have the money themselves. So it will be important to at least undertake this exercise. You know, what you just read seems to me like, obviously, is the banking supervision that is in an overdrive.
Yes.
And I think they've given an opportunity to the banks, somehow, I call it the carrot and the stick situation, but the banks to somehow yield to this, the debt exchange program. I mean, the last one you read, which is the carrot really, is to encourage them to be part of the program. But I would think that the shareholders of these banks must be interested in these conversations, and they must have these conversations before they even attempt to yield to what the government is proposing. I think that is what I've got to say for now.
But I don't know when those discussions or conversations will be had, given that we have 19th of December to subscribe to the program. Of course, maybe nothing is cast in stone. Yes, you wanted to say something?
Well, it must be hard. I mean, it definitely must be hard so that people don't feel that the banks have been shortchanged.
Very well. Dr. Kwabasin, what are you telling your members? They should subscribe to the program or they should not? and there's also reprieve in the financial, how do you call it? The fund, the financial stability fund, financial stability fund. There's some reprieve or some opportunity for you to make some money to help fund your activities. What are you telling your members, to subscribe or not to subscribe? 19th December is the deadline. Hello, Dr. Kwabasin. Do we have you? Okay, but it's not on. We will get him. All right, Honorable Ricketts. No, I think it's on. Yes. We are struggling with this. We are struggling with this network. Let me just go around, and then hopefully you'll be the last person I'll speak to on this. So, Honorable Ricketts Hagan, government. I mean, Bank of Ghana appears to be responding. Issues have been raised about the banks, etc. Why they are quiet. It simply means that they've been engaging behind the scenes. What do you make of the measures?
Well, I don't think. I think if you listen, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead. Okay, I think it's gone off. Honorable Ricketts.
You know, one of the things, one of the problems that the central government is creating for Bank of Ghana, Bank of Ghana has its own failures, but what the central bank is creating is basically more or less shifting its own responsibility and overburdening Bank of Ghana with supervision and oversight responsibilities and load. You know, the things you've talked about, I was beginning to imagine whether the central bank itself can actually monitor all these things that they're talking about. You see, one of the problems where we are at the moment is as a result of even the fiscal things that, and I want to talk about fiscal, I mean fiscal policy things, that the central government should be doing. It's now been given to the central bank. You know, when you look at all these reserve requirement, capital adequacy ratios and all that, you know, good as they may sound, but there's really a serious problem. You know, what is going to happen in the end is that the capital itself of these banks in the end will be raised. You know, the banks had to pay 400 million?
Yes, 400 million.
At the time, you know, was about 30 million USD.
Yes.
Was at back to the same 80 billion. They will have to pay about 1 billion now to be able to get there. The banks don't have sufficient money now in terms of whatever they put aside to be able to deal with the problems which most of them have now become a big ticket kind of transactions which they don't have the resources for. So all the things they have drawn, the government has drawn the Bank of Ghana to become partners of the kind of incompetencies that's going on at the moment. And Bank of Ghana is playing along, doing things that they are not even supposed to do. Some are good, but some are overstretching. And they are overstretching the central bank itself. Now, so good as they may sound, there are actually serious problems with that kind of oversight responsibility, which is becoming a bit overstretched because the government is not doing what they are supposed to do. They are taking, again, unilateral decisions in doing certain things. Where they don't take a unilateral decision, they sit down with people to agree on something and they go and do something else. That is also unilateral decision. Because what I agree with you, if I go and do something different, it means that I have done what I want to do. And this is the problem that's going on. And then when we talk about, you know, every idea this government comes up with, it's quite, the bauxite issue you talked about, and then, you know, disputing the idea that the gold thing is adapted. This bauxite thing, when we were clearly told that was a barter transaction. And again, that's where the Gadgetsburg becomes a stone age instead of going forward. Now, I think next year or so, the Sino-Hydro things are due to be paid. And the bauxite is still on the ground. Nobody knows all the things, the nice things, the wishful thinking they talked about, getting bauxite, processing it, and all that, hasn't happened. Then they go for gold. We had bauxite.
There is actually a legal suit, a legal matter involving the bauxite in Atiwa.
Well, they should have thought about all these things. They don't think through things properly. Now, you talk about this gold thing that you're talking about. Look, gold has a lot of laws. There's a gold standard and everything that you have to adhere to be able to do certain things. Now, what makes it difficult for me to understand is, why would you take gold? Look, the cheapest oil that you can find in the world is the one you produce. Because you can put certain things aside and say, okay, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do this, therefore I want my oil to be this cheap. You cannot go anywhere to gone are the days where we had the Gaddafis and all that if things become difficult, they'll give you one lift of oil to sort yourself out. You are going to go into an agreement. God knows whether it's a stopgap or it's a long-term agreement, that you are going to be supplying gold to a presumed seller of oil for them to be able to, first of all, that person you are taking the gold to ought to be wanting to have gold. Look, gold might be good, but not everyone who needs gold. People will prefer.
But the initial discussion suggests that they want the gold.
Well, that's what they say.
Enoch says they are fine.
They went to, what is it called, Abu Dhabi or whatever, and basically wasted another taxpayers' money.
No, but it was the Abu Dhabi trip that spawned this one.
I don't believe a thing that this government says. Okay, now, so the gold is going to go, and then the oil will come. Let's hope that the oil comes. Now, who is going to buy the oil now? We are in a deregulated system, okay, which sometimes they are questioning the whole thing. Now, are they going to get it back to regulated? You ask a question, whether the BDCs are they going to be offered the same opportunities? We have a deregulated system where the BDCs get money, and it's not free money, from the central bank, because the central bank is able to provide them with a dollar to go and buy these things and bring them in the country. And then we have the MPA, the National Petroleum Authority, who people are making excess profit out of this because Ghana doesn't operate a futures market. Therefore, futures market that people or future prices that people use in pricing things are basically coming out of their own head. And therefore, they create prices that people cannot really. I have always asked myself, why can't the government simply, two things. One is going to simply give money. Look, there's a reason why we create state enterprises. Even in a deregulated market, or even in a capital market or capital economies. They have some companies that continues to be state-owned for security reasons or for times like this. We have GOIL, which is supposed to be a state company, and the OMC, and also doubles up as a BDC because they have the muscle to be able to buy their own oil. Why don't you give the foreign exchange to them and tell them that, look, sit with MPA, agree on a reasonable price, factored in with what is a reasonable future,
What happens to the other BDCs?
No, hold on. So, because you are using that to be able to draw the others in. Okay. So when you give the money to them, whatever money they require, they go and bring the oil in and sell it at a certain price. You know what's going to happen? Instantly, all the other BDCs who are extorting the system as a result of the fragility in the system will begin to play ball. Because if I can get my fuel at what the price is, we know it's not going to be cheap. If we can get it at what we think the price should be, because government is not telling us how to sell it, but it's making sure that nobody is actually, basically, ripping up the system. All the others will come and work, and then it becomes a simple thing. If you want to become like God, play the same game, and we'll give you the money. Instead of all these things they're doing, trying to go around the world, carrying gold to go and bring oil in. I mean, what a daft idea. Gettysburg economy is going to Stone Age economy.
Very well.
I really clearly see that Honorable doesn't understand what is going on. And it tells me straight away
you guys
that
don't understand.
NDC hasn't got any option and any opinion.
You have
and
no idea what you're doing.
They don't think outside the box.
I don't know how much involved you are.
What do you make of the
no idea.
I've gone through. What I'd advise Bank of Ghana is that they shouldn't deal with the banks alone, but they should look at the heavy depositors and then bond holders and everything, and also have a one-on-one with them. Because when you look at the number 7 of the banks are accepted to do the things they are supposed to do, it says assess the Ghana Financial Stability Fund as the last resort of liquidity backup stop or backstop. So it tells you that they need to do a lot more negotiation. You know, the problem that we face usually as an institution is that you really start with, okay, Bank of Ghana feels I'm dealing with the bank, so let me deal with the banks only. But what about the insurance institution and the other institutions that have invested a lot within the banks? Because they are the more like the big ticket holders. So you need to also have some engagement with them to understand their flow or where they come from and how you can also help to make sure that there's stability within the banking
so
industry.
the last point on the fund, that they should access those. So
as
that,
a last resort.
Yes, so that will, because if I invested with a bank and I need my money, all I care about is my money is given to me. The banks then apply to the fund and get the money for their money.
Yes.
So I think the banks
they are looking at reducing their CAR and everything to make sure that they have enough liquidity within the system.
Yes.
That's why I said they need to do more engagement for the community to also understand.
Elliot Amponsa sent a message asking that in the event that organized labor rejects all of that, the voluntary subscription, and then they go on strike in protest to your proposed haircut, what will government do? So there's unrest in the country.
Yes.
What will government do?
Is it the last resort? Strike the last resort?
I mean,
you shouldn't look at that as an option. Sit down with government. And
yes, but maybe they sit down, things are not working.
It will work.
From the tone of
there should be an agreement.
Government doesn't even listen.
There should be an agreement at the end of the day. Government will not just say that, okay, I don't want to buy into you. They will have to convince you why maybe you should toe their line, or you would have to convince them or tell them that, listen, I can't toe that line. What is the next option? Definitely, they have to be a judge or for truth to come in. So definitely, I don't believe that strikes and demonstrations are the resort to what will change what is happening. And I've said, I mean, it's either we work together to make sure that we resolve this, or we fall into the pit together and we all get our heads cut off.
Let me try Dr. Kwabasin once more. Dr. Kwabasin, are you there?
Say all this issue. Can you
yes. Let me talk to Dr. Kwabasin. Dr. Kwabasin, you are the final word on this. Are you there? I hope we reach you on a better line.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
Yes. You asked the question whether or not we were encouraging our members to either join or not join, subscribe or not subscribe to the voluntary. Now, the issue is not about encouraging or not or discouraging. That is not the issue. The issue is that there's a concern about asset liability mismatch. Beyond that, looking at how we can solve the challenges together. And so I think that, yes, the 19th has been given as a deadline, but there should definitely be engagement between parties. Because if you decide to insist on the 19th and so on and so forth, and the 19th passes, and even after you have surmounted the challenges that confront you, there is no insurance company. It means that the issues have not been resolved completely. So our position is not necessarily asking somebody to join or to join, but then looking forward to engagement as soon as possible. Unfortunately, I think there were hints given to us in the minister's presentation that the respective regulators should also engage their respective regulated entities. I am looking forward to such engagements so that we look at it is not an issue of us versus them.
Yeah, so the Bank of Ghana, for example, appears to have started that engagement with this letter to the Ghana Association of Insurers. Has the National Insurance Commission made any such move towards the Ghana Insurance Association yet?
Yeah, there's hint of that. And so of course, obvious today is a weekend, so we are looking forward to Monday or thereabout and see how we can engage the commission and other parties involved, just so that we find a way forward. Because to be very sincere, insurance operations is a bit different in the sense that we take small money, we have to give multiple, unlike other financial systems where you take small money and you give a fraction. That is critical. So we are in a situation where 1% are the insurance penetration is 1%, and we are asking people to join insurance. Beyond that, in the National Financial Inclusion and Development Strategy of the government, it says that we are currently at 58% in terms of financial inclusion, and by 2023, which we are looking forward to moving to 75%. That cannot be achieved if we do not solve the issues of insurance, because one of the key things, especially looking at the 80% of the informal sector that we have in this country. So we are amenable for discussions, and I believe that engagements will come as soon as possible, so that we find a way forward together as a country, just so that we will not have a situation where after we've surmounted the economic situation, then there will not be any insurance companies to even protect our assets and liabilities and our persons.
Very well. Thank you so much, Dr. Kingsley Kwesi Kwabason, CEO of the Ghana Insurers Association. Thank you so much. We're moving to the next subject, which is the botched move to remove the man in the center of all of this, Ken Ofori-Atta. Yes, we're done with it. We'll move to the next issue. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. So thank you so much, Dr. Kwabason, for agreeing to join us for this morning's discussion. So we are taking a break now, but I'm allowing Alfred to give a 30 minutes.
Yeah, just a 30-minute summary.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. I just want to plead with all the bond holders that this is not a hard and fast rule. This is not a cast in stone. They should sit down and negotiate. Let us come to an agreement so that we can all come out of this together, because we are in it together. And whatever serious decisions they take will affect the fortunes of this country. So let's forget about what other people would say, naysayers and everything. Let us look at the situation. What situation are we in? And I expect also the finance ministry to have a one-on-one with them, communicate with them, be open with them, show them everything that is going on, be very transparent with them, and let them see the serious situation we are in. Let us work together to bring this economic back on track.
Very well. A few of your messages. Good morning, Selorm. This government has never been truthful to Ghanaians since assuming power. Inconsistency, blatant disregard for rules of laws, and penchant with which things are done, ignoring all wise counsel, etc. Said they have the men indeed. Jones Adoboy Inla. This one from Prince Henry Koforidua says, President, please listen to the voice of the people who gave you the mandate as president and sack Ken Ofori-Atta. This one from Philemon from Teacher Mante says, good morning, Selorm and team. Sometime ago, I heard the president and MBB saying that they have the men. If indeed they have the men, why are they afraid to sack the finance minister? Kwekwina Accra says, the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, said point blank that Ghana is never going to the IMF for anything. But this has come, this is not true, or this hasn't been true. The finance minister has lost credibility, you say. A few more of your comments will be read. We'll take a quick break. When we return, we'll delve into the other matter of the motion for vote of censure on the finance minister. The finance minister is a very busy man in these days. We'll return and deal with that. Don't go away.
Grace Royal International is 20 years. Hooray! We're bringing you a Christmas concert and anniversary launch dubbed Birth of Grace, happening live at the Holy Spirit Cathedral, Accra, on the 11th of December 2022. Time is 6 p.m. sharp. Get seated at 5:30 p.m. Rate 100 Ghana cedis for regular, 150 Ghana cedis for VVIP. Get your tickets at Wesley House near the British Council, Accra, and Christ the King Parish Bookshop opposite Flagstaff House, or dial *365 *1012# for networks. Sponsors: GCB, Leukemia Foundation, ATL, Lumen Christi TV, and African Regent. It's gonna be a night to remember. For For further information and sponsorship, call 0207 380 866 or 0246 146 082. Grace Coral, it's praise, it's wash.
Voila.
Grace. Katanye, GoTV nye. Kaweni so enjoy all 64 games live on GoTV. Get your Go Coder and Plus at 89 Ghana cities. GoTV, love it.
6 years of explosive performances by the leader of the movement, a culture, a nation, Beam Nation. Bernatone Music presents the ultimate African Caribbean link-up, the Grand Arena, Friday, 23rd December, the 6th edition of the annual Beam concert with Stoneboy and the legendary Busy Signal. VIP tickets going now for 500 Ghana cedis and 200 Ghana cedis regular. Visit beamconcerts.com. Dial *365*2022# or call 0501 550 000 for VVIP table reservations. 23rd December, the Grand Arena, 7 p.m. prompt. Bernatone, Beam Nation to the world.
Can you come over? Right now, loneliness taking.
Yeah, welcome back to The Big Issue. We are live on 97.3 City FM. We are also live on DSTV channel 363 and GoTV channel 182. We just finished discussing the matter of the debt exchange. We've had quite a lengthy discussion on that. We are moving on to the removal of Kenoforiata and whether it's a lost cause. The minority wanted to use the vehicle, the constitutional vehicle of Article 82 by filing a motion for vote of censure. But that was botched. That did not happen because the constitutional requirement is that you need 2/3 of parliament. The majority, who had also said prior to the filing of the motion for vote of censure that they did not want Kenoforiata anymore, failed or refused to help the minority in getting out Kenoforiata, at least using the parliamentary process, even though the president will still have to take the decision. Is it a lost cause? What do we go from here? I introduced my guest once more. Franklin Kujo, who has been part of the discussion since the beginning, is still with us. Alfred Thompson, former Deputy Marine Director, NIB and NPP member, is also still here. But we have Justice Abdullahi. He's a private legal practitioner. He's joined us now, and we still have the Honorable George Ricketts Hagan, Member of Parliament for Cape Coast South, also with us. Gentlemen, again, welcome to the program. I start off with Ricketts Hagan, Honorable. You were in Parliament. The committee, I think I saw you on TV one of those days observing the work of the committee.
Yeah.
The committee, many have criticized that their job was not good enough. The reports did not have findings, recommendations, etc. Of course, given the nature of the matter and the composition of the committee, you could only expect a stalemate. That's what we got. And you lost the vote. You knew that you were going to fail, yet still you went ahead to do it. So the conclusion we've seen really was inevitable.
Well, Salam, we live in hope. Unfortunately, in this part of the world, hope, there's always a shortfall when you're looking for hope. We had a parliament where 136 members of the parliament are saying that we don't want the finance minister. Don't forget, we are 275. We don't want the finance minister, and therefore we putting in this motion of censure to get rid of the prime minister, of the finance minister. Then you get 80, which later became 98, of the majority side also saying that we've been to our constituency, the people who voted for us to be elected as members of parliament, on whose behalf we are actually represented in parliament. We have had an opportunity to go to them. These are the people we work for, and they are saying that the finance minister is part of the problem. And therefore, please go to the house and get rid of him. So they do so and went to the president, our president, their president, and discussed this issue with him that, look, if you don't get rid of this guy, we will show up for the budget. Then the president tells them that, you know what, I have heard you. I'm going to get rid of him, but I want him to finish the negotiations with the IMF and finish the reading the budget. And then after, I will yield to what you are saying. Basically, that's what he. And then they walked away. That's itself is even shocking. They walked away without anybody telling the president, Mr. President, if really what you are telling us is that you understand what we are saying, but you want this guy to do these two critical things and get rid of him, that itself will become more problem for us. In a sense that the guy who is going to present the budget is not going to be the one to implement it. The guy who is going to be negotiating with the IMF or negotiating already with the IMF is also will not be the guy who will live to implement this. By live, I mean not as a finance minister.
Yes.
To implement this. Why then would we want such a person? Because then already you have really damaged the person in the eyes of the IMF and other partners. They see this finance minister as not credible because whatever he is negotiating, he's not going to live to implement it. So, do you think that such a person is going to do a good negotiation for whatever love this guy has for Ghana? The answer is no. Do you think this guy's budget that he will present will be a budget that the investor community, the citizens of Ghana will trust? The answer is also no. So even on those discussions with the president, they should not have agreed. But unfortunately, the structure of our governance, the structure of our country or parliament or government is such that these people who went there are more or less disgruntled people. Some were former ministers, they dropped them and they were not given any alternative. Some have been waiting on the bench to play as ministers. They are not calling them. 2 years is already gone and two more years left. They don't know when they will be called. Some are still living in hope that don't let us rock the boat. Let's listen to the president. Because my taking a decision as a member of parliament who has been advised by the people who voted for me to get rid of the finance minister selfishly doesn't mean much to me. But what the president, who is likely to appoint me as a minister, whether I believe in what he's saying or not, let me hold fire. Other than that day probably will never come. That is the nature of our system. And it makes it difficult for members of parliament, especially on the government side, to have independent mind and do their job as independent people. These are discussions we have to look at in the future as to how the constitutional issue is addressed of members of parliament becoming ministers and all that. It makes it difficult for members of parliament, especially those in government, to do their work without any interference from government or fear of something happening to them. Now, these guys who have lost credibility already by coming out to say that we are not going to listen to the budget and later coming and saying that, oh, now, we've had a president, so we'll wait for things to happen. Then I don't know what happened. Whether some promises were made to them and it didn't happen, they came back again and said, hey, we still stand at where we were, and that we are not going to listen to the finance minister and everything. Then we are saying that, look, let's give you comfort here. you know, what's it? Francis again have a say, what's in some of what you want to do, that even those who are gone, they want more people to come. So we are offering you an umbrella to work on that. We also want the finance minister. We have moved forward, you know, to do this legally. Join us and make your life easy. 98 plus 136, it's over the 2/3. They said, oh, you know, the way you want to kill the cat, that's not how we want to kill the cat. Of course, there are many ways to kill a cat. So they have not been able to tell us, other than what their constituent told them, that the cost of living, the higher standard or the higher cost of living, and all the mess, the economic mess that the finance minister, you know,
they didn't join you because the grounds with which you came
were
not in good faith.
I'm coming to that. As I said, the ultimate goal is to get rid of the finance minister.
Fair or foul?
Well, there's no foul here. Because, look, some of the things, and my regrets, is that in the end, the minority stayed and voted against the finance minister. It means all of us were convinced that the finance minister must go. But I have challenges with the process. Again, I have said this time and time again. We made a collective decision to do what we did. A committee was put together by the speaker. My reservation is, you see, maybe we have not been able to prove beyond reasonable doubt that this finance minister has serious questions to answer. And to go to the committee with 7 grounds, and the committee decided that we're going to take up 1 and 3. Look, with all the things we presented, the 7 grounds, look, some of them, about the last 4 or so, are things that are difficult to prove. You know, you can talk about incompetence and all that. But how
those are very subjective.
Yeah, how do you prove it?
It's very
because
subjective.
You can get 2 economists, a Nobel Prize economist. They will give you different policy directions, and both of them at the time could be right until things go wrong, and they will even tell you the assumptions they made and what happened, that things went wrong. So those were difficult to prove. But to prove a case of
conflict of interest.
But
there was a constitutional bar.
The constitutional bar, does it bar parliament? If it did, the Speaker of Parliament should not have referred that to the ad hoc committee in the first place.
Yes, but the fact that the Speaker didn't advert his mind to it, and it was raised, and they both agreed, should not mean...
Look, for me, that issue itself has even metamorphosed to something completely different. It was not an issue of potential conflict of interest anymore, but it's an issue of profiteering as a result of conflict of interest. And this is what we should have gotten the opportunity to prove. Look, what I'm holding here will basically give you the numbers why the finance minister has done certain things but this will be explained in the future. It will definitely come up again. These guys have done bonds of about 11 billion since 2018. 2 billion in 2018, 3 billion in 2019, 3 billion in 2020, 3 billion, even some say it's 5, 3 billion in 2021. That's what we knew they went for. When we were in office, or when we were in government, since Kufuor's time, the first Eurobond was done in 2007 under President Kufuor. And then there was no Eurobond again until 2013 because President Mills did not do any Eurobond. So we did Eurobond of about 3.5 billion on the last up until 2016. All the other Eurobond, the 11 billion or some will say 13 billion, were all done by this government. The rate at which we were charging, that is the fee structure of the Eurobond, and I was part of the Eurobond until 2016, was 0.65% from Kufuor's time. And then a decision was taken because nobody, they talk about the impressive pedigree of Data Bank. Data Bank has not done Eurobond anywhere in the world before. Never.
Not even in 2007.
Listen, they have never done Eurobond. And somebody should come and challenge me on this and show me which Eurobond they did and for which country. They were apprentices. They were included on capacity building basis. Because 2007 when Kufuor decided to go to the Eurobond market.
It was the first time in Ghana.
It was the first time in Ghana. Nobody has, and Data Bank, even until then, had never been involved in any Eurobond anywhere. And don't forget, Eurobonds are usually done by countries. They haven't, we don't know of any history of Data Bank, haven't done any Eurobond anywhere. So banks were selected to go and build capacity so that someday the money that is being paid to international, transaction advisors will be paid to our own, which makes sense. Instead of going to bring these people and they do this Eurobond and we pay them, a percentage of the proceeds, we will give this to our own, which was a sensible decision. Now, what then happened when we came in 2013 to do the second Eurobond of another 750, million? We decided to constitute these investment banks. And the idea was that each year we will vary them so that we will spread out the capacity expertise. So that someday they could come together and do it in some kind of a, syndicated fashion. 2013, 2014, 2015, 2016, all the Eurobond we did, all the people we included were apprentices. Data Bank was involved in 2014's Eurobond after 2007 because we were using other players.
Yes.
Then, with 2016, 2017, nobody did Eurobond. This government didn't do Eurobond in 2017. They started in 2018. And Data Bank and their cronies came back to the scene and they have never left until 2021. Every year they carry them. So look at 2017 to 2021. How many years is that?
About 5 years?
No, more than that.
2017.
2007.
2007. That's like 14 years.
Yeah, 2007. That's the first Eurobond.
That's 14 years.
To calendar 2021. That was the last
14 years.
14 years. All the people we labeled local transaction advisors were basically apprentices, and they are still apprentices today. Because the prospectus are not written by them. It's never been written by them. All the prospectus are written by the international transaction advisors with the legal guys. And we use about 5 of the local, including 2 legal firms. So the best you can describe about their job is probably to review the prospectus and nothing more than that.
And you paid them how much for that?
So we were paying them 50,000 since Kufuor's time. 50,000 US dollars.
Flat rate?
Flat rate.
Not percentage.
No. 50,000 flat rate.
What's the situation now?
I'm coming to the situation. This is where the issue is. This is where Ken Ofori-Atta needs to answer some questions, which unfortunately we were not able to push him, and then he came and lectured us. So what happened then is that in 2018, they changed the fee structure from the 0.65% to 1%. Okay. And now they started paying the local transaction advisors flat fee plus some kind of a commission, if you can call it that way. So they moved it from 50,000 US dollars to 100,000 US dollars. Then they continued to pay the international transaction advisors 0.65. And you know what they told them? They told them that, look, all the Eurobond we've done in the past, we've never exceeded 1 billion before. We did 2 750s, 207, and I think that 2016. And then 1 billion in between, 3 that done under President Mahama. So we are going to do bigger Eurobonds. So stick to your fees and then you, by volumes, you make more money. And the international community accepted. So the guys didn't mind. We are making free money. Then the 0.35, which became the difference between the old fee structure and the new one, accrued to the local transaction advisors. In addition to the 100, and let me give you the figures here. If you put it all together, the 0.35%, which was not paid to the international transaction advisors, adds up to $38.5 million US. If you put it together, it was 7 billion the first time round because they did 2 billion, and then with the 3 billion they did from 2019 to 2021, it's 10.5 billion each. If you add it all up, it's 38 billion. Plus, then out of this, obviously they were given 100,000 and all that. So this 38 billion was money that was used by the finance minister to pay off the local transaction advisors, which, and I repeat, were just apprentices and had never done any Eurobond before. Now, a decision was taken that Ghanaian economy to our stock exchange, so that not only building people who can do Eurobond, but also conscientize Ghanaians to become used to the Eurobond market.
Yes.
I'll finish shortly. Now, so the small amount that was done, one would have thought that test the local transaction advisors, at least to be duration or to be either duration managers or to be book runners, because they've been book runners for our local bonds. Even that small amount of Eurobond shares, and somebody should come in, were done as book runners by the international, the Citibanks, the Standard Bank of this world. So basically, Data Bank has done nothing.
So they've done nothing to deserve.
They were not duration managers. They were not actually real transaction advisors. So they did not write the prospectus.
So your point is that they got all the money.
They did not market the bond
of Kenofura.
Needs to. Yeah, and I will end with this one. When they do the Eurobond, you have the fee. The fee is used, or the total amount of proceeds that they get, and in total they've charged a fee of 220 million to 11 billion Eurobond that they've done. This 20 and 20 billion is split between expenses on the roadshow, hotels, and all that. Even the hotels these people slept in
were paid by the state.
Were paid by the state. I was with them. Now, what then happened after?
So you went as well.
Yes, as a deputy finance minister.
Former deputy
minister. That's what I'm saying.
Finance committee.
Yeah, and then I was responsible for doing the North Africa, because we're North America.
So you benefited from it as well.
No, well, he was doing his work.
I was doing my work.
He benefited from the loans as well.
Which benefit? What benefit?
They didn't pay you.
I want to raise money. No, I get paid as my job. I was doing my job.
Yeah, but going on, they gave you per diem.
Look at what you're talking about.
They didn't give you.
You said,
isn't that part of
people? Let me finish. Send people to Abu Dhabi to do a tax deal, and then So basically, what it is that the structure, you pay for expenses, okay, and then you pay fees. Now, when the Kenoforiata, and I will read something to you, which we just don't have the time. So I know you don't have the time.
Yeah,
but let me just tell you something you need to know, and Ghanaians need to know. And I'm just sad that we're not able to bring this up. I put this question. This is our hands up. I put this question to Kenoforiata. And it was basically the same answers. I'll read this quickly to you. I haven't
read this before.
Yeah, I haven't read this to you before. Mr. Speaker, this is my question. I beg to ask the Minister of Finance, which companies were used as local transaction advisors and local legal advisors for the 2021 Eurobond? Now, let's the question answer he answered. He did agree that it was capacity building. He did agree that they've changed the fees. But look at what he told me. He said, Mr. Speaker, it is really good and important question. It is important that we pay international advisors, and he said over 1 million, which I said. I remember in 2007 when we went to the first Eurobond issuance, honorable ministers and civil servants were admiring the buildings. This is sad. Admiring the buildings that we were in. This is Kenoforiata for the international advisors, and I asked them, if we keep paying 50,000, which I told you about, if we keep paying 50,000, this is the basis upon which he raised the money to our local advisors. When will they grow to get the capacity to become like this big bank?
So in
essence, he was using government money to build Goldman Sachs in Ghana. The buildings that they are sitting in there, which you saw in New York, they wanted to be like.
Very well. The point is what
this was his reason.
Very well. He said quite a few things. They failed to.
This is sad.
They failed to get.
That we let this guy off.
You did not.
How much time?
You did not support them. Just make your point.
How much time do I have?
Just make your point.
No, I just want to know so I can work with him.
We have 3 minutes.
After he's speaking for 10 minutes.
You are depleting the time further. So just make your point.
He speaks for 10 minutes and I speak for 3 minutes.
Don't worry.
Okay. They raised 7 points. 7 points: the despicable conflict of interest, unconstitutional withdrawals from the common fund, illegal payment of oil revenue to offshore accounts, deliberate and dishonest reporting of economic data to Parliament, fiscal recklessness, alarming incompetence and frightening ineptitude, and gross mismanagement of the economy. 7 points. And from everything is narrated here, it gives me the understanding that either the minority has shown gross incompetence or they are very dishonest to Ghanaians. Very, very dishonest to Ghanaians. Because if you have all this here and you've taken Ken through all this painful...
The conflict of interest bit he raised was not tabled.
It was tabled and it was taken out.
That's
yes,
what I mean.
And also the illegal payment of oil revenue.
To him not to answer.
Illegal payment of oil revenue to offshore accounts. It was also taken off.
Yes. No. Okay. So there were two things that didn't answer those ones.
No, so they took. The committee itself took it off.
Yes.
It tells you that they didn't have anything against him. It tells you straight away that they didn't have anything against him. You see, we don't mind as a party, as a government, as if the citizen says that okay, Ken should go. Honorable Ken has done his due. If they need to let him go on a clean slate. You don't come and impugn, criminality on him. And then you expect us to support you. It won't happen.
So how will he go? You guys say he should go.
We have our own terms, which we've agreed with him on it. When he finishes what he has to do, he would go. He would resign himself. But you can't come and tell me that I should...
What if he doesn't resign?
When you get to that bridge, you see whether he will cross it or not. But I'm telling you that you cannot come and tell me to impugn criminality on my own.
Ken
when I know
he's seen all of this,
when
all
I
of
know
this happening,
there's no criminality.
Why wouldn't he want to go himself now?
You see,
why is he holding on?
You see, when he was speaking and telling me all about the went here as a committee member, I asked him whether they gave him per diem or not.
So you've got a per diem, Ken is staying. Ken says he's not paid the salary.
I'm asking that did they give him per diem on? So he also benefited. So if Ken is working and is benefiting one way or another, where has he gone wrong?
It's not. But per diem is something he must be paid because you move him from his comfort zone.
The company.
Sorry that I have to sacrifice you again on this. I know you've heard you quite a few times on this, but yes, 1 second.
The data bank debt was what we were paid for. Now, this same person, you said the majority did not support you, is the person who presented the budget. But you approved the budget in total.
Very well.
You have approved it in total.
Very well.
You've approved him fully for the second round. If one person in that committee has stated that they don't approve him, Ken would not have gone through when he was coming for a second round. But you approved him.
Very well.
And then you come and sit down and impugn.
Thank you so much for listening. This has been our big issue for today. My guests, Franklin Kujo, Alfred Thompson, and Ricketts Hagan, George, MP for Cape South. Thank you so much for doing the listening. We'll catch you some other time next week.